is City News, now on 101.1 FM and
It's Monday, March 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, minus 14, feeling in the low minus 20s in the wind. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It is a mega merger Monday in the Canadian communications sector. Rogers, parent company of this radio station, has proposed a purchase of Shaw.
Rogers Communications has signed a deal valued at $26 billion, including debt, to buy Shaw Communications. The companies say Rogers will invest $2.5 billion in 5G networks over the next 5 years across Western Canada as part of this deal. Rogers also says it will create a new $1 billion fund dedicated to connecting rural, remote, and Indigenous communities across Western Canada to high-speed internet service. Don Kelly, The Canadian Press, Toronto.
City News Time, 9:01. Provincial online booking site for a COVID vaccine shot has been open for about an hour now, and Premier Doug Ford has some advice.
He's asking people who are not in that 80 and over age group or the people assisting them not to log into the system just to see if it works this morning. That is going to create the possibility of overloading it. Over 800,000 appointments are available for booking province-wide. General Rick Hillier, who heads up the vaccine rollout, says the online portal is robust.
We have stress tested the system over the last weeks here, and including with Toronto Public Health over these past days. And since Friday, we booked more than 15,000 appointments for Toronto Public Health online booking system. It was done without a flaw.
Hillier says a telephone system is also set up with 2,200 operators capable of handling 10,000 calls per hour. I'm Kevin Meisner.
You can get the details, the website and the phone number on our website at ottawa.citynews.ca. A resident of Miramichi Lodge in Pembroke has died of COVID-19. The County of Renfrew confirming this is the second resident who has died from the virus. They say there are currently 3 residents in their COVID care unit, all asymptomatic. All but one resident in the home have received both doses now of the COVID-19 vaccine. 4 Ottawa police officers in self-isolation after an incident with a COVID-positive person. Police were called to a residence back on March 9th and say they were unaware that an individual at the scene was COVID positive. As officials were trying to arrest that person, someone spat in a sergeant's face. The accused is now facing a charge of assaulting a peace officer in addition to the domestic-related incident. City News Time at 9:03. A new local lottery begins today. The Ford 50/50 Plus for CHEO. Grand prize, a Ford F-150 along with half the pot of cash, and that pot begins at $50,000. Dan Champagne of the CHEO Foundation, he's the VP of Corporate and Community Development, tells City News the importance of this fundraiser.
This is really critical to fill the void, of course, for funds that, cancer doesn't take a break because of COVID-19. Mental health demands are greater, frankly, because of COVID-19. So this is a very important new event for us in the CHEO Foundation year.
Now, a couple of early bird prizes are also up for grabs. This contest will run until April 25th. You can go to the CHEO5050.ca site for more details. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
when the headlines say X,
he's got the Y.
it's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
You know, I used to work for a company that was bought by another company. It was a bigger company, and then that company was bought by another company, an even bigger company. And then I worked for a different company that bought another company to become a bigger company, and maybe someday we'll all work for the same company and we can just call it Unicompany. Good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News. Bit of a bite in the air this morning, isn't there? Thank you again for giving us part of your morning. I think we've lined up a fine program for you. We're going to get things going this morning by taking stock of where we are with COVID-19. As we begin another week of coverage of the pandemic here on the Rob Snow Show on City News, certainly some of the headlines don't fill me with optimism. Of a dozen countries or so, they've suspended use of what was once viewed as one of the most promising vaccines, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. That's because of some rare occurrences of blood clots. Canada is not one of those countries that has suspended use of that vaccine. Quebec is actually using that vaccine, the AstraZeneca, in people over the age of 65, which goes against the advice of NACI, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization. In Ontario, that vaccine isn't being used in people over the age of 65. So see, confusion. To get even various provincial health authorities to agree on what the best path forward is when it comes to vaccines at this particular point in time. The online booking system from the Ford government just went live, about an hour ago, I guess, right? Don't use it unless you're over the age of 80 or you're one of the special select few. But I was on the system this morning, and it said that there were more than 37,000 people using the site at that time, and the wait time was more than an hour. It said the wait time was more than an hour. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean an hour and 10 minutes? Does it mean 7 hours? I don't know. Look, if anyone happens to use that online booking system this morning, I would be very happy to get an update from you on how things are going. What the actual wait time is. Did it go okay? Was it smooth? The Premier said yesterday, it's been thoroughly tested. We're ready to go. Well-oiled machine. Going to work like a charm. Shouldn't crash. But any live play-by-play would be welcome this morning. You give me a call during the talkback hour at 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. We do the talkback hour after the 10 o'clock news. You can always drop me an email at therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. The Nepean Sportsplex for the clinic there for people in their 90s. How did that go? Curious to know. Did it seem well organized? Any issues to report? In fact, you know what? If anyone has received a vaccine for any reason, or if you know someone who has managed to score even one dose of vaccine, I would appreciate it very much if you gave me a call and told me how that came to pass at 750-1310 during the talkback hour. Do you know you had even one dose of vaccine, David? Do you know anybody, family members, friends, whatever?
Yes, both of my grandfathers have received a first dose.
Both of your grandfathers, okay. In their 80s? Or?
Yeah, in late 80s, over 85.
Okay, all right. Here in Ontario?
One here in Ontario, one on the Quebec side.
One here in Ontario, one on the Quebec side. Okay. I don't know anybody. In fact, in our circle, like my family and Jen's family, it appears that the first one to get vaccinated will be Jen's daughter, who's like 23 or something, because she works in a pharmacy. She'll be the first one. I know, right? Crazy. The United States is now doing almost 2.4 million doses every day. Isn't that incredible? 2.4 million doses a day. Canada has managed to do 3 million doses in 91 days. In fact, I looked it up this morning on the Bloomberg Vaccine Tracker, the individual U.S. states that have done more doses than Canada, than all of Canada. Texas, Florida, New York, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, Michigan, and New Jersey. 9 U.S. states have managed to administer more doses of vaccine than all of Canada. New Jersey's population is less than 9 million. It's done more than 3 million doses so far. And 12% of New Jersey's population has been given 2 doses. 12% of New Jersey's population, 2 doses. The same number in Canada's 1.6%. Only 1.6% of the Canadian population has actually been given 2 doses of a 2-dose vaccine. 1.6% of the population. And now the decision has been made in many provinces to wait 4 months between the first dose and the second dose. 4 months, 112 days. We have an expert coming on the program to talk about how he feels about that, coming up in 5 minutes from now. It's amazing. We hit 3 million doses at some point during the weekend, and you see it in the media. I saw it on social media for sure. Some liberals sound like they want to hold a parade. Like, let's have a parade down Bank Street. There's no St. Patrick's Day parade. Let's have a 3 million dose parade. Yeah, congratulations. 3 million doses 3 months later. The U.S. doing 2.4 million doses a day. Anyway, lots of time to get into all of this morning. It's only Monday at 10 after 9. Don't let me get all worked up just yet. We do the talkback hour every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. That's your hour. Hour of phone calls, hour of opinions. Make the most of it. Take advantage of that platform. Also on this morning, we're going to do a few interviews about this week. The cost of living, inflation in the news. A pair of columns in the Globe and Mail this morning about inflation. Inflation clouds are gathering is one of the headlines. Now, officially, Statistics Canada says inflation is running at an annualized rate of 1%. In other words, the cost of living is going up 1% a year. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? The cost of living is going up 1% a year? For who? If I said to you the cost of living is going up 1% a year, what would you say to that? And give me an example. The Consumer Price Index, this basket of goods, 12-month change increase 1%. That's the official line from the nation's official statistical agency, Statistics Canada, 1% a year. Do you buy that? Do you buy that? I'm no expert, okay? I failed the grade 6 math test. They're the experts. They're the number crunchers at Statistics Canada. But 1% a year, they say the cost of living is going up 1% a year. It just seems to defy all common sense. So we're going to explore how this can possibly be, given the price of fuel, the price of food, the price of just about everything that has to do with housing, putting a roof over your head. How is it that StatsCan, because the cost of living is going up 1% a year? Philip Cross, just the perfect person to explain this. These days, he is senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. He also happens to be the former chief economic analyst for StatsCan. If anyone can explain it, you would think it would be him. And it's a big week for the Conservative Party. Aaron O'Toole. Policy convention this week. Aaron O'Toole will make a big speech, maybe the most important speech of his career so far. There's no doubt Conservative Party needs some mojo. Last week, talked a lot about how the party's polling numbers are in the tank. Worst polling numbers since the creation of this new United Conservative Party, what I call Harper's Party, 28% in the polls. Discontent in the caucus, anger in the West, SoCons in revolt. The party has had better days, much better days. Remember 10 years in government? Those were better days. There's an old line in Canadian politics, the worst day in government beats the best day in opposition. Conservative Party needs a jolt. Needs to convince Canadians who aren't convinced right now, there are many of them, that this party is a serious government in waiting, and that's Aaron O'Toole's job this week. We'll look at what some of the problems might be right now with the Conservatives, look ahead to the convention, this virtual policy convention, with the help of Ian Brodie. Who is he? Well, he was the very first chief of staff to Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And these days, he's a professor at the University of Calgary. That's a pretty darn good show, if you ask me. Stick with us till noon. You'll be happy you did. The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, is got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong product, items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying. And then I shut my business down for, I think, a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries. Started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting. And anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not. But more so now, because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff. And again, their situations and their circumstances change.
Of concern, third waves. Where are we on this Monday with COVID-19? Dr. Colin Furness joins me now, epidemiologist, University of Toronto's Dalla, Lana School of Public Health. Good morning.
Good morning.
How would you describe the current situation in Ontario when it comes to the pandemic right now?
It's a bit of a confusing time because we're seeing case counts coming down. We've seen that happening not just here, but in many places, and that really feels like the end. The problem, though, is that there's two curves, and one is hiding the other. So the curve that is coming down, we can call classic COVID. There's a curve underneath it going up, and that's the variance of concern. That's concerning because we know how this behaved in the UK and in Ireland and elsewhere, and it seems to be starting here. We can't think of any reasons why it's not going to behave the same here, and that means we're in for, I think, a pretty unpleasant April.
Okay. So I've heard from some experts in the last week phrases things like there are two pandemics or this is a new pandemic. How would you describe it?
I don't think it deserves to be called a new pandemic, and the reason I say that is if we think back to last March, we didn't know what we were dealing with. We were fining people for sitting on park benches in Toronto. I mean, if you think about the fear and the unknown, that was terrifying, and it took quite some time, many months, to really learn about this pathogen. It's the same pathogen. It's not new. It's more contagious, and we know what that looks like, and we know that our control measures work, so we're not in the same place. I'm not going to call it new. I think we have two waves, one receding, the other one rising, and that rising one's hidden, and I think that's the problem. But it's fundamentally the same thing. I don't think we need a new kind of fear for this.
Okay. What do you think about the term third wave? Is that inevitable? Some people are saying it's inevitable Ontario will have a third wave. What do you think of that?
I think we're already in it. There's no question in my mind. It's already started. The thing about a wave is we tend maybe not to use that word until it hits an inflection and we start to see a really large rise in the number of cases. Epidemiology curves start out flat. They start out really flat and they increase ever so slightly and then they bend high. We obviously haven't bent yet, but it's happening. We're in that wave now, and I think the sooner that we recognize that, not in a panicky way, but just in a cold, hard way to say, well, what now do we need to do to control this? I think that's the right attitude to have.
Okay. How much better prepared then, Colin, are we for this third wave because we are vaccinating people now and we know more about the virus and how to treat it in the hospital settings and whatnot?
Well, I'm expecting that to make this a short wave, much shorter than the first two. Part of it depends on whether we have the political will to do the kinds of control measures we're going to need to in the short run, but the vaccination is important. It's very, very helpful. There's not enough of it soon enough to make a really big difference right now, but I think by the time we get on the other side of April, and I do think April's going to be an unpleasant month, I think the vaccine effort might really start to pay dividends. So it's something where we can be very positive about when the weather is reliably warm, we should be in a way, way better place. In terms of control measures, we don't need to experiment now. We know what works. We just might need to do more of it. I think what's really concerning is the variants have been rising even while Toronto has been in the gray zone. Even while other regions have been gray or red, it's been rising. So we're going to have to up our... And unfortunately, and I say this with a heavy heart because I'm a parent, I think we're probably going to have to close schools for a while because this variant is very good at spreading. So I'd like to say we don't, but I think we're going to. It's what they had to do in the UK to bring it under control.
So I'm confused because you consume so much news about COVID-19, and I know the original fear with the variants was that it was more transmissible, but now there may be some research that would indicate that it's also more deadly. What do you think? The more severe could cause more severe illness as well.
That's a slippery one because it ultimately depends on what populations the virus is exploiting. Okay. So we are, in fact, vaccinating our most vulnerable right now. That ought to take the edge off more severity. We saw certainly more symptomatic cases among kids. That would mean more serious cases among kids. We're pretty sure that this new variant has a higher viral load. It makes more of itself inside you. That often predicts more serious illness, but it hasn't been catastrophically different. So that's actually a pretty hard one to put on. But it being more contagious means that if you're vulnerable, it's harder to avoid. It's harder to not get sick. And so in that sense, it's more serious. If it fills up our ICUs and we run out of ventilators, then we could say it's really serious.
Okay. What do you think about 4 months between doses of vaccines?
That's risky. It's a calculated risk. So important to remember. We're not doing it so individuals can say, I'm immune, I can go anywhere, I can do anything. That's not the way population vaccination works. You vaccinate people so that COVID stops circulating. In other words, you make it go away. That's what keeps people safe. It's not individuals having had the jab, it's collectively making COVID go away. So we will do that faster by doing one injection and spreading out for 4 months. The risk is that by having a partially immune population for several months, we're actually providing the perfect sandbox for COVID to evolve a vaccine-resistant variant. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't. It may not. In fact, I'll say it probably won't, but it could. And that's the risk we're taking.
Okay. Yeah, it's, gosh, I've talked to so many experts about this. It's hard to even get unanimity among the experts. That's part of the frustrating part with being in the media or being a layperson.
Or being, on the expert bench. It is uncertain. It is changing fast. We've had to learn, and we have to learn a lot. We've had to unlearn a lot. And yes, there's going to be some disagreement among experts. Certainly, everyone's got a different perspective. Those with a modeling background look at it one way. Those with a microbiology background look at it another way. I've got a behavioral social science background. I look at it a different way again. So there's going to be that, and I know that can be unsettling to all of us.
Yeah, I also worry about vaccine hesitancy when you read about what some countries are doing with the AstraZeneca vaccine. I'd like your take on that. There have been these isolated incidents of blood clots, but as the company AstraZeneca says, there have been 17 million doses, but there have only been, I think it's less than 24 cases of these blood clots. So in percentage terms, it's at the micro scale in percentage terms, and surely to goodness some sort of side effects or ill effects would be expected just by the numbers after 17 million doses. What do you think, Colin?
It's trust is the most important thing around vaccines, and trust, typically we can't get that from a mathematical relationship. You're right. The number of serious side effects, if they are in fact side effects, very, very small. If you vaccinate enough people, you're going to see what looks like ugly responses, because if you take a large enough people and don't vaccinate them, you're going to see some unpleasant responses. People have strokes, they have heart attacks. This happens every day. So across 17 million people, yes, you're going to get some. Blood clots are unsettling only because that's something that COVID does, coagulating your blood. So it's a sort of thing that can make people very, very skittish. I think the most important thing to remember is you're at much greater risk of getting something awful from COVID, of having catastrophic brain damage, of having heart damage, lung damage, kidney damage. We know that happens, and we know that COVID is very prevalent. So if you're worried just about weighing risk, the vaccine is absolutely the way to go.
Okay. So brace for what could be a difficult April, I think, is your main message this morning. Fair enough?
Yes, brace for a difficult April and be optimistic, really optimistic about what lies beyond. When the weather gets warmer and the vaccination picks up, this wave will be done, and we may have variants. We may need to have booster shots with our vaccines over the next 6 months or a year. So the end game may be kind of long, but it feels to me that when we start opening up again, when the weather gets warmer, we're going to stay open. And I think after a really difficult year, 1 more month we can do this. After that, it gets much better.
Okay. I thank you so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, March 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 14, feels like minus 24. In Smiths Falls, minus 13, feeling like minus 20. Here's what's making news this hour. It's a massive merger in media this morning. Rogers, the parent of this radio station, has proposed buying Shaw Communications for $26 billion. That still needs regulatory approval. No major problems reported as the provincial booking site for COVID vaccinations opened at 8 o'clock this morning. About 8,000 people initially lined up online just to book their shot. This is right now only for people who are 80 years of age and older. The Premier asking others not to log on until their age group is called for. This week's trickle of COVID-19 vaccines arriving in the country set to explode next week. Public Health Agency of Canada expecting less than 445,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine over the next 7 days, but about 1 million doses in the following week and the weeks after. A resident of the Miramichi Lodge in Pembroke has died from COVID-19. The County of Renfrew confirming that this is the second resident who has died from this virus at that home. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
A pair of really good opinion pieces in the papers today. One's from William Robson. He's Chief Executive Officer, C.D. Howe Institute. If inflation's back, it's politics, not economics. And then David Parkinson as well. Inflation clouds are gathering. Should we be worried during a pandemic? He writes, when Statistics Canada releases a new monthly consumer price index on Wednesday, it will do so amid financial markets that have suddenly become obsessed with inflation. And the latest reading of inflation from Statistics Canada was the January number, and it said the annual inflation rate is 1%. 1%. Now, if I said to you, good listener, the cost of living is going up 1% a year, I do wonder what your reaction would be. It's always been hard to believe the way they calculate inflation at Statistics Canada. Philip Cross joins us now, Senior Fellow, Macdonald-Laurier Institute, former Chief Economic Analyst for Statistics Canada. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you for coming on the program. What do you think? Is the consumer price index, the cost of living, the inflation rate really running at 1%? What do you think?
I think for the average person across Canada, it is. And I know that a lot of people don't believe that. I mean, this is one of the most persistent problems for Statistics Canada is this constant questioning of the CPI. That people say, you know, I went to the hardware store and I bought something and I bought this and that and the price was up 5%. And how can you say the CPI is only up 1%? And the fact that this is a recurring problem year after year, decade after decade, shows that Statistics Canada has a real problem communicating well on this subject. But my personal belief is, and everything, all my experience in Statistics Canada in 36 years is, the CPI is calculated correctly. We can't have 37 million separate CPIs. I know a lot of people say, well, it doesn't reflect my reality. But the point is, it's not meant to reflect every individual reality out there. It's meant to reflect the average Canadian.
Right. But the average Canadian, though, Philip, uses gas. The average Canadian eats food. The average Canadian has shelter. So how can so many people be wondering, what's going on? These people at StatsCan tell me inflation's running at 1%. What planet are they on?
Yeah. And the problem is the things you just cited is one of the problems, is that people tend to form their idea of inflation based on food and gasoline, things that they buy every week. And they don't price in, for example, that the cost of a mortgage has come way down over the last year because they only renew their mortgage once every year or perhaps once every 5 years. So when you start to factor in all these things we don't buy every month, like cars, like computer equipment, and so on and so forth, When you start to factor all that in, I think perhaps too, people's idea of perceptions aren't always based in reality. A lot of people out there, for example, believe that gasoline prices will always rise a lot on the Friday before a long weekend. That's a well-established myth out there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Statistics Canada and other organizations like the Conference Board, they have studied this over and over and over again, and it's just not true. What people don't understand is the price of gas is as likely to rise on a Friday as a Monday. There's only 5 days a week that the price is going to change. And people notice it when it's just before a long weekend, which happens almost every month in this country. When prices do rise on the Friday before a long weekend, which they're likely to do about 20-25% of the time, people go, aha, I knew it. Those gasoline companies are raising prices just before a long weekend. And as I say, when you look into it, you can have all the experts in the world analyze this, and that's not true. And the same is true with the CPI. I mean, people don't really understand. Again, Statistics Canada can't say this, but Statistics Canada puts more resources into the CPI, and all its best people work in. Statistics Canada knows it. Three things they have to get right: the CPI, the unemployment rate, and the national accounts. The best people go to those areas. There is basically no budget in the CPI. If they needed something to fix a problem, they would have it. They have the best experts advising them. The idea, there are little problems with the CPI. The basket doesn't get updated as fast as would be ideal. Just the last year, we've seen, for example, that because of COVID, none of us travel anymore on airplanes.
Right.
So the weight of airplanes is overstated, and that does cause minor problems. StatsCan and the Bank of Canada have both talked about that.
Travel and accommodation, as whatever components are in that basket would malign the data in some way.
That's right. That's disappeared from our actual spending patterns, and that's an ongoing but relatively minor problem. That causes distortions of 0.2, 0.3%. So maybe you don't believe the inflation rate in the last year is 1%, but it's not likely to be wildly off. It's probably somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5%. But the idea that inflation out there, the real rate of inflation is 5-6%, it just doesn't fit with everything else we know about the economy. If inflation was really that high, we'd be seeing, people wouldn't be out. If people were really that broke, retail sales wouldn't be so strong. The stock market wouldn't be so strong. The housing market wouldn't be so strong. People do have money. So, as I say, when you look at how all these numbers fit together, the idea that inflation is substantially understated is really hard to believe. But again, I understand that, and I'm sure it's true for a lot of people. You can go to StatsCan and look at your personal inflation rate. They have a way. I did this myself in the week of preparing for this interview.
Yes.
I found my personal CPI was up 1.3%, which is pretty close to the national, but it's not bang on. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there, especially if you have a lot of food at home, for example. We know the price of that's gone up a lot in the last year. And if you have a big family and you're feeding a lot of mouths, it probably is true that your personal inflation rate is up 3, 4, 5% in the past year. But that doesn't mean that the average person's is. There's a lot of other people out there who don't consume a lot of food at home. Older people, people living alone, and so on. And, quite properly, Statistics Canada has to take account of all those people.
How come Statistics Canada does different versions of the Consumer Price Index? That they have what's known as an all items CPI, and then they have what's called core inflation. Can you explain what the difference is there, please?
That's just to help the Bank of Canada, help analysts understand the underlying, what's likely to be the underlying rate of inflation. It's really not built for the average person. Statistics Canada also produces a lot of other different types of inflation to see if it makes a difference. For example, whether you are older. The question has always come up, do older people have a different inflation rate than younger people? And the answer tends to be not much. There's another one that we've also done studies that look at, do richer people have systematically different inflation rates than poorer people? We know richer people buy different things. They travel more, for example. Poorer people spend more in food and rent. And yet when you look at that, again, the inflation rate tends to be very close. So this idea that there's a lot of different inflation rates out there that show different results are really exaggerated. I mean, the underlying core inflation rate is probably a little higher than the headline rate of 1%, but again, not by that much. I mean, you can take all these, you can look at a lot of different rates of inflation, and they all tend to be pretty close to the headline one, at least within, at most 1%. So again, this idea that inflation is, that different measures are way different from the headline rate are vastly exaggerated.
Okay. All right. Not that I'm trying to belabor this point, but for example, $1.27 for a liter of gasoline. Meat and vegetable prices at the grocery store, certainly higher than they were a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
Homes in Ottawa, $700,000, $1 million for a house in Toronto. You go to Home Depot, the price of lumber has doubled. So these are very visible things, but that must mean that there are costs on the other side in the basket that are, if they're not inflationary, they must be deflationary and they're offset. And it seems, Philip, that you're saying, because it's not something you would buy every week, like a tank of gasoline or like a roast at a grocery store or whatever the case might be. Is that it? There are other prices that are actually going down.
Exactly. For example, one reason the price of lumber and the price of housing is so high is because the interest rates have come down. And lower interest rates have made housing more affordable. And that's captured in the CPI, not just the price of the home, but the price of financing it with a mortgage. If homes really were vastly more expensive than last year, people wouldn't be piling into the market. But the fact that demand has risen so strongly shows that the effect of those lower interest rates are very important. We have to, people have to look beyond just the things that they buy the most often and think about, okay, I buy furniture and appliances. The price of those has come down over the decades. The price of clothing is a lot lower because of, we import a lot more from China than we used to a decade ago. So the prices of a lot of goods, especially, which are traded across borders, has come down. People tend to look at just, the filling up the tank and buying food and getting a haircut. But you've got to look at the things that, at the whole basket. And Statistics Canada does a very good job of that. What they don't do a good job of is communicating well with people and engaging with people like you, as we're doing now, and talking openly and frankly about the different problems, and not just with measuring, but also of people's perceptions. Right.
Now, people who are familiar with your columns that would typically appear in the National Post or the Financial Post, they do know that you have been critical, for example, of some of the fiscal policies of the Trudeau government. Fair enough?
Oh, very much.
Very much so, right? How concerned would you be that some of their policies could fuel inflation?
I'm not, in the long run, not overly. I mean, we know inflation is going to take off this year because very soon we're going to be comparing prices in this March and April with last year at the worst of the lockdown. And prices were, for some goods, were quite depressed last year. Remember, the price of gasoline was dirt cheap a year ago.
Yes.
So we know headline inflation is going to jump up quite significantly this year to something like probably around 3%. And that's going to fuel a lot of concern. People are going to go, okay, here we go. The stimulative policies are triggering big increases in inflation. I'm not overly worried. I think I do trust the Bank of Canada at the end of the day that at the first whiff that the underlying trend of inflation is going up, and not just because gasoline prices were higher than they were at the worst of the pandemic, but if they see a broad move to higher inflation in a lot of different parts of the CPI, I have no doubt the Bank of Canada will come down like a ton of bricks on this and start to tighten policy. And if that costs governments a lot of money, well, that's just too bad for governments. The Bank of Canada has spent a lot of its credibility over the last few days as an inflation fighter, that it won't tolerate inflation above its target. It's not going to throw that year. It's not going to throw all that credibility away just to help governments transitory problems with the deficit. So I don't trust the government, but I do trust the Bank of Canada.
Okay. Thank you, Philip Cross.
My
Great
pleasure.
to hear from you this morning and have your insight and expertise on this one.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Senior Fellow, Macdonald-Laurier Institute, former Chief Economic Analyst for StatsCan. Hopefully we can get more into that topic during our talkback hour after the 10 o'clock news. We're going to talk to the Vice President of Mental Health and Addictions at CHEO, Executive Director of the Youth Services Bureau of Ottawa as well, Joanne Lowe, coming up next to the spike in eating disorders among children, young people globally, attributing all of that to the strains of the pandemic and the effects that it's having on mental wellness. We'll be right back. Rob Snow Show here on City News.
It was devastating, and it's devastating to all small business, but not knowing where it was going to go. But then the renovation market, as people stayed home, took off like wildfire. And for us, yes, we're very lucky, very fortunate that we were able to turn things around. I think a lot of it had to do with our internet presence as well, that I was, kept working on over years, and then it kind of took off. So that was very positive. But now, no, people are staying at home. We're renovating different markets, whether it's a kitchen or a backyard or, your fireplace. They want to cozy things up. So yes, things are extremely busy right now. Right now it's fireplaces, and I think with the snowbirds, a lot of those clients have existing wood fireplaces, so they're looking at inserts. So they want to convert the wood to gas. They don't want to deal with the wood part of it, but they want it clean and easy and efficient, and that's been a major, major increase in our business. The cottage and chalet market has really increased, absolutely. We see that people, that's their staycation now, is either the backyard or their cottage with their close bubble of family. So there's no question that we've seen a big, big increase in that area as well. I've seen a change in the backyard because now the staycation, from my past being in the pool business, one of our great clients was in the other day, and he's in the pool business. He's booking for 2022. For in-ground pools, okay? So I think what's happened now is that's brought everybody back home, and I think maybe down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still gonna see people spending time in their backyards and staying home more. The barbecue area, really, we call it the backyard. So you walk out of your house into a backyard, and it kind of looks like that with the fencing and the sky and things like that. So that is just our fun room. It's just, there's a lot of cool gadgets there that has to do with dealing with charcoal and wood. Online, you're going to find, you just Google, romantic fireplaces will come up. The one nice thing about our work is that when the Google reviews and the Google pictures are phenomenal. We're uploading stuff every day. I have at least 1,000 jobs, real jobs that you can take a look at, either on the Google pictures on the drive, or if you go to our website at romanticfireplaces.com and click on our work, it's where we used to load lots of them up, but there's lots of pictures there too. But the great thing about that is they're real. There's testimonials there about people talking about our team. And our team here is unique to everybody else. It's two small teams, but these fellas work for me. They're our guys. So when they go into your home, they care as much about your house as you do.
God.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Just reading through some of the survey results from it's a new survey done by the Canadian Mental Health Association on mental health among residents in Ontario, and it suggests only 35% of us would consider our mental health to be very good or excellent. Last May, it was 52%, so a significant decline there. 80% believe that there will be a serious mental health crisis post-pandemic. That compares to 66% in August and 69% of last year. And the percentage of respondents who report high or very high stress levels has increased to 36% from 30% in the summer. And those reporting high or very high anxiety risen from 30% in the summer to 35% now. Feeling more isolated, 57% reported feeling lonelier since the pandemic began. 47% said they wish they had someone to talk to. And 36% said they are often or almost always lonely. That it's startling, it's worrying, concerning, and probably none of it is news to Joanne Lowe, Vice President of Mental Health and Addictions at CHEO, Executive Director, Youth Services Bureau. Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you think of those results of that?
Those numbers are startling, and as you mentioned in your intro, not at all surprising for those of us who are working in the field of mental health and addictions, particularly if we're working with young children. We've seen in our region alone an increase of up to 30% of young people and their families seeking help. And I think perhaps one of the most compelling things that we're seeing is that when they are asking for help, their circumstances are more complex than they may have otherwise been due to the pandemic, due to the isolation, due to the lack of pro-social activities, and all of the changes that have occurred for all the right reasons in terms of precautions, but all of the changes that have happened for young people as it relates to school. I think one of the other big trends, not a good trend, but one of the very substantive trends that we're seeing is also for young people who suffer with eating disorders.
Yeah, what's going on there?
So this is perhaps one of the most worrisome circumstances. So I can speak to what we see at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario and our mental health program, our eating disorders program. We're seeing this year 63% more inpatients with eating disorders than we did the same time last year. That's a phenomenal increase, and we're also seeing this across the province. When I talk to my colleagues at Sick Kids, for example, they would be reporting the same concern around the increase in numbers. And I would also say that we're also seeing a very significant increase in the acuity of young people who are looking for help as a result of an eating disorder.
Acuity meaning severity.
Severity, right, yeah. So that their circumstances are more complex. They're just more ill than right. They would have otherwise been. We know that right. COVID,
kind of like other chronic illnesses.
It is.
Right?
It is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think we see we know. So YSB operates a 24/7 mental health crisis service for children, youth, and families, and we've seen an increase of 35% of the number of people who were contacting us through call, chat, or through texting. And we're also seeing that 15 to 20% of them are also calling us with who are suicidal or at risk of self-harm. And those are the things that really concern us, obviously, because we need to respond very quickly. And that's where we see more kids accessing the Emerge department. So in spite of the emergency department, the use during COVID of the emergency department at CHEO, there was about a 40% decline. But the rate of those presenting in the Emerge department with a mental health concern remained the same as it did pre-COVID. So that says a lot, because that means that we're still sitting at about 90%, 95% of the presentations are those who are looking for help for a mental health concern.
Just specifically on the eating disorder, 63% increase in eating disorders intake, basically, right? You said?
Yeah.
How do you? What do you think is going on there? What could possibly explain something like that?
Yeah, so I'm not a clinician, but I will tell you that some of the trends that we see are, the disruption, and not just a disruption, the constant disruption of the regular schedules and activities and the routines among young people, particularly for a young person who relies heavily on routines and structure to support them, in particular if they have a pre-existing mental health condition before COVID. The isolation, absolutely, and really just the overall anxiety and concern about when this will end and what the impact it will be on everyone's lives, including their families. This pandemic affected everyone in one way, shape, or form. Families will be forever changed in terms of how they managed to get through the pandemic. And for young people, there will be lasting effects on all of this because of the change that occurred over a fairly sustained period of time. We're now, into the second year of this. And so, we need to have families and kids that are resilient coming out of this. And if we don't start paying attention, and quite frankly, if the government doesn't start investing more so in services to build our capacity, we're going to be in really, really a lot worse shape than we were pre-COVID.
One of the things I wonder, and, we can wrap things up on this, but I had Cameron Love on my program last week, the CEO of the Ottawa Hospital, and we were talking just surgical procedures, a backlog of 15,000 procedures. Well, here we have, just in eating disorders, a 63% increase. And you say, other increases in people seeking help for various mental health concerns. There were limited resources to begin with, so there must be a growing backlog to access those services, I would suspect.
Absolutely. Right? We're seeing an increase in wait times. We're seeing, young people are needing when pre-COVID, they perhaps might have only needed, 5 to 10 sessions. Now they might need much more than that, and that creates a backlog of people who are
And how long do you wait for your first session, though?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and we're having to prioritize those young people who are the most acute, who are the most in need and the most at risk. And that's just not a place that any of us like to be, because we know that we want to be able to open our services and have them available and responsive to all those who need them.
Okay. Thank you for your time this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Joanne Lowe, Vice President, Mental Health and Addictions at CHEO, Executive Director, Youth Services Bureau. Talkback Hour coming up next. Hey, did you try that new Ontario online booking system for a vaccine this morning for those 80 years of age and older, or some select special few in select categories? I'd like to know how that went. Did you get a vaccine? Remember I asked you that last week? Anybody get a vaccine? Do you know somebody who has been vaccinated even with one dose? How did that come to pass? I'd love to hear from you. And the cost of living, it was great to have Philip Cross on and explain the cost of living. But again, I come back to my question. The cost of living, StatsCan says it's up 1% in the last year. Is that your experience? 750-1310, Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show, City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, March 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 14 degrees, feeling like minus 24. In Smiths Falls, minus 13. It feels like minus 20. Here's what's making news right now in Ottawa and the Valley. The provincial portal to book vaccinations has been open for a couple details. Here's City News reporter Alex Bloomfield.
The web address to bookmark is ontario.ca/bookvaccine. A landing page will filter you to the proper portals. Now, the province estimates some 800,000 people born in 1941 or earlier are now eligible. No reports yet of the system going down, but there are some significant wait times. If you prefer a phone option, 2,200 operators are standing by at 1-888-999-6488 until 8 o'clock each evening. Now, Premier Ford will be speaking about Ontario's vaccine rollout this afternoon at 1 o'clock in Cobourg. Of course, a new batch of COVID-19 data due out around 10:30 this morning. We've seen some increasing numbers over the past week or so, and on Sunday, a data catch-up sort of masking the actual number, but it was fairly high, over 1,700, even if the factoring in some of those cases that may have been catch-up related, still likely elevated from what we've seen the week before. So we're waiting to see how these trends continue, with some epidemiologists predicting a third wave. I'm Alex Bloomfield.
City News time at 10:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Last week of winter, and we'll start with cold wind chills. Our high just -4 today, but lots of sunshine. Tonight, mainly clear down to -14, and then turning milder tomorrow, mainly cloudy up to +3. For today, the high -4.
And right now in Ottawa, -14. It's -13 in Smiths Falls, but feeling colder in the wind. 4 Ottawa police officers are in self-isolation now after an incident with a COVID-positive person. Police were called to a residence on March 9th, so last week, and say they were unaware the individual at the scene was COVID positive. Officials say while they were trying to make an arrest, someone spat in a sergeant's face. The accused now facing a charge of assaulting a police officer in addition to domestic-related incidents. Rogers Communications, parent of this radio station, has signed a deal to buy Shaw Communications. That deal valued at $26 billion, including Shaw's debt. Under the plan, Rogers would pay $40.50 in cash for Shaw's issued and outstanding Class A and Class B shares. At close of markets on Friday, the Shaw shares were worth just under $24 each. Streaming services are dominating Hollywood's biggest award show, with the Netflix drama Mank getting the leading 10 nominations.
A leading 10 nominations for Mank.
Please call me Mank.
Netflix's Citizen Kane origin story up for Best Picture against 7 other films, including The Trial of the Chicago 7, The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, and The Sound of Metal. Left off that list, films including Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and One Night in Miami. Nomadland's Chloe Zhao makes history as the first woman of color nominated for Best Director. She's nominated alongside Promising Young Woman's Emerald Fennell, the first time 2 women have been nominated for Best Director in the same year. Jason Nathanson, ABC News, Hollywood.
Now, Canadian filmmaker Ben Proudfoot has scored an Oscar nomination for A Concerto is a Conversation, film nominated in the category of documentary short subject, nominated alongside American composer Chris Bowers. And the Ford 50/50 Plus for CHEO has launched today. The jackpot is $50,000, but it grows from that point. The winner gets half of that, plus a Ford F-150 truck. Dan Champagne is with the CHEO Foundation. He's VP of Corporate and Community Development and says it is critical to help CHEO fill the funding void that was caused by events that had to be canceled last year because of COVID-19. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on The Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Yep. Let's get going here. On a Monday morning, phone lines are all yours. In the Talk Back Hour. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Email The Rob Snow Show at ottawa.citynews.ca. Vaccines, again, a big story this week. Will be all week. Will be for some time to come. Big story for me this morning. Have you been vaccinated? Even if it's just one shot. I am jealous, by the way. David is jealous too. Andrew is jealous too. We're all jealous. Okay, we have vaccine envy. Have you been vaccinated? How did that come to pass? What are your circumstances that you were allowed to get vaccinated? You lucky devils, you. Do you know someone who has been vaccinated? As mom, dad, the spouse, Aunt Susie, Uncle Joe, whatever? Have they been vaccinated? Again, how did that come to pass? Where, when, why? How did it go? 1 dose, 2 doses. Give me a sense of things. Did you try? This is another one. The vaccine online booking system. This is going to be a big story for us here today at City News. Did you try the online booking system this morning for Ontario? Okay, March 15th. Here it is. Online booking system is here. Over the age of only please. It opened at 8 o'clock in the morning. How did it go? Did it work okay for you? How long was the wait? How many people were in front of you in that line? How would you describe the experience? Did you log on at 8 and you're still waiting? Or did you opt for the phone line instead? There's the toll-free line, right? Did you use the phone line instead? And the same questions apply. How did that go? I guess if you're, waiting for the phone call, maybe you can't call me, but let's try it anyway. How did it go? Long waits? Easy? Was it a trying experience? Was it a dreadful experience? Just curious. Did you go to the Nepean Sportsplex clinic? The clinic there for people over the age of 90, and how did that go? How would you describe that operation? That's a city operation. So there you go. A few things to get things going this morning on vaccines. And the inflation rate. And again, I thank Philip Cross for coming on. He's the expert, not me. But it's kind of an obsession of mine, the inflation rate, the consumer price index, the cost of living. The new number will come out from StatsCan on Wednesday. The last time, a month ago, when it was released, StatsCan told us the inflation rate is 1%. Okay, the annual inflation rate is 1%. Is that what you think? The cost of living is going up 1% a year? If you think it's higher, why do you think not? Now Philip Cross says, no, it's a completely accurate number. But if you think it's higher, why do you think that? He also admitted it's common for people to think that. I mean, what prices do you find are higher or even a lot higher? I mean, for me, gasoline, obviously, a very obvious one for a lot of people. But a friend of mine took a picture of lumber prices at one of the big home improvement retailers, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like lumber prices have doubled, basically, since the spring. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Let's get right to our phone lines here. Versal, is that how I say it?
Yep.
Yes.
You got me?
I gotcha.
Okay, we're from Arnprior.
Yes.
I'll give you a rundown of how efficient it was here.
Okay.
On March the 9th, I got a call from my doctor, Dr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Advising me that her name was going to go on the list for the shots. I'm 83, my wife is 81.
Okay.
Within a short period of time, we get an email advising us that our shots will be available on March the 10th.
Wow. So the next day.
Between 6:10 and 6:15 p.m. At the Arnprior and District High School.
Okay.
From my place to the high school is about 10 minutes if you don't hit a traffic light.
Okay. And how many traffic lights are in Arnprior?
About 5. But anyways, we arrive at the high school. They have a police officer on duty telling us where to go.
Right, yes.
They had sent us all the forms to fill out before.
Okay.
We had them all filled out.
Good, yes.
But 2 people checked the forms and our health cards.
Yeah.
That took about 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
They said, just move ahead.
Yeah.
There was about 3 cars ahead of us.
Okay.
We drove in. We stopped.
Yeah.
We showed them our health cards.
Yeah.
A doctor came out, gave us our shots.
Came out?
From the school. They had
Right.
an area where we could drive through.
Oh,
They had a receiving line set up there.
I see. Okay.
The doctor come out. I only found out later who it was. It was Dr. Cynthia M. somebody. But anyway, make long story short,
yes.
We drove up. We stopped, rolled up our sleeves, took our shots. And they marked the time.
Yes.
From the time we arrived until we got our shots.
Yes.
Was we were in there at 15:47. That would be 5:47. We went into a holding area for 15 minutes to make sure.
Yes.
And we left.
Right. So first of all, just so I understand, did you even get out of the car?
No.
You didn't even get out of the car?
No, rolled down the window.
Rolled down the window.
From the time we left our house until we got back.
Yes.
Was way less than an hour.
Wow.
And within a period of time, we got a big email from, now this is done by the Renfrew County Health Unit.
Okay.
We got a big email telling us the time and date we got the shot, the type of material we got, and what they did.
And what was it? Did they tell you?
Yeah.
Pfizer? Or?
Yeah, it's the Pfizer one.
Pfizer.
And they'll tell us that we'll be notified for our booster.
Right, okay.
And we were back home within 45 minutes.
Good for you. And you're both done with one shot.
Yeah,
and you're going to you'll get some follow up when you can come back for your next one.
They were so efficient, it was unbelievable.
Excellent.
And when you come out of the parking lot, they had another police officer there to make sure there was no problems with traffic.
Right. So the whole thing took 45 minutes, and round trip is 20 minutes in the car, and you never had to get out of the car.
No.
Wow, that's a pretty efficient operation for sure.
Sports radio.
Excellent, Verso. Thank you. Thanks for calling. I'm glad things went well for you.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Yep. Okay. That's good. David in the West End. David.
Good morning, Rob.
Yes, David. How did things go for you?
Before we start, Rob, a word of caution to people online waiting to get an appointment.
Yes.
Okay. You need your health card number.
Okay.
And you also need the number on the back.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Without that number on the back, I guess you go back in line or whatever.
Okay.
My son is in line right now, and he said there's 40,000 people ahead of him.
Okay.
Online.
Right.
Okay. The Sportsplex, Friday.
The PN Sportsplex. You went there on Friday with your wife, who is over the age of 90.
96 years old.
How did it go?
Okay. We drive in. There's no signs saying what to do. Went to the front of the building, dead. Drove around the back, hit a line of traffic. There's a policeman there telling people they're running an hour behind and go and park in the parking lot. A guy is going around with a blowhorn saying when your time is up.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, naturally, being an old fart, I'm there at 5 o'clock, and our time is 5:25, right?
Right.
Okay?
So you're early. Yeah.
I'm early.
Yeah.
The first time that I heard was 4:30.
Okay.
And I'm there at 5 o'clock. I hear 4:30.
So
anyway,
you're there at 5 o'clock. They're doing the 4:30 appointments now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
My appointment's 5:25.
Yeah. Okay.
So now,
yeah.
When my time is up, which was well after 6 o'clock,
yeah.
You go in, there's a line on a ramp, a little girl asking all the questions, did you do this and that? You go through there, it's organized chaos. That's what it is.
Organized chaos.
Organized chaos, because the kids are doing a fine job, really.
All right.
But you line up inside, and then they send you to a bank of people on computers.
Yes.
And you go and you do your thing at the computer. Then you go to a waiting area.
Right.
The waiting area has 5 lines of chairs, and they're watching very close that nobody gets ahead of anybody else, so they call one line at a time. You go to a nurse's station, and I think there were only 9 or 10 nurses there. And you get your needle, and then, like the other chap said, you go to a cooling off area.
Right.
And that's a 15-minute.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, the problem is there's a lineup to get out.
A lineup to get out. Okay.
Yes. And I thought, well, I'm going to get in line, let the wife sit in the recovery area, and I'll get in line to get out. because the line's going to take 15 minutes to get out.
Okay.
So I'm in line. I signaled her when it was time for her to come, because that was 20 minutes. And when we get outside the door in the hallway, there's 3 computer guys there that finish you off, okay?
Okay.
They give you paperwork and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you get a certificate.
Yep.
Now, when you and I spoke on Thursday, I guess, you mentioned a storm. You said something about...
I said it was going to snow when you were going there. Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
All right. So when the door opened and we stepped outside, we stepped into an alleyway that was not covered, and it was storming like you can't
Well, there
believe.
you go. You see, I should be doing the weather.
Exactly.
Now, let me ask you this, because I got to run here. But
Okay.
So she's got the first shot.
Yes, Moderna.
Moderna. When will she get the second one? Did she tell you?
On the bottom of the page that we have, it says your next shot is, and it's blank.
Oh, okay. It's blank. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Appointment,
interesting?
date, and time for your second dose, and it's blank.
It's blank. Okay.
Yeah.
So your appointment was at 5:25.
Yeah.
What time did you ultimately get home?
Oh, well, we left there at about 10 to 7.
10 to 7. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, at least you got one dose.
Yes.
She's got one dose. That's good. All right. Look, David, I got to run. Call me later in the week and tell me how the online thing went for you, okay?
I'll do that.
All right. I got to run. Thanks, Dave. Bye-bye. 10:17, Rob Snow Show, City News.
When it came to opening the business, because I was so young, there was a lot that I didn't know about management, financial management, management of people, all around management, I think is the word that I always come back to. I think that I always had a passion and I knew that I wanted to create a space for people to get their hair done, but I had no idea, even having studied business management, what it really took to open a business as well as sustain a successful business. So in 2014, I was actually working with Angela Sutcliffe. She was my business coach at the time, and she was like, what's your niche? Like, what separates you from other salons? And when we started to really dig, it was the curls. It was the fact that we work with all curl types, curly, kinky, wavy, coily, which is how we identify our curl types. And then you have straight hair as well, of course. But you know, more than 70% of the world has some sort of curl pattern to their hair. And we just realized that that was not being addressed. It wasn't something we learned about in school. So I went to the States and I traveled all over to kind of gain the information that I have now to be able to share it with our clients and as well as with other stylists. So in March when it came, I thought it was gonna last, a week, 2 weeks, through, I think it started off at 2 weeks. And I was like, cool, I have 2 weeks to just relax, that's fine. So I was actually in a position where I was not happy, so to say, but I was a little bit happy, to be honest, just because of what I was experiencing personally. Now, when that extension started to happen, it was not a great feeling. It was very uncomfortable not knowing how I was going to support myself financially. So I'm so excited about the Academy. It's something that I started and I launched it during the pandemic. So I've been teaching for a number of years. I've been educating for a number of years. I educated at Algonquin. I've educated at Versailles Hair Academy. And I've also educated in my own space, in this space and my old space up on Green Bank. And so it was just a continuum of what, I've been doing for these years. When we have a client in our chair, it's not just about making your hair look great. It's about how do you go home and take what we've just taught you and emulate that. So now with a world where people want to quote unquote be diverse and inclusive, what does that really look like in a salon setting? And for me, it looks like being able to invite any curl type, any hair type really, because I can take care of straight hair types just as well as, I can take care of curls. And we cater to all curl types, regardless of what you look like on the outside. We got you.
On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Vaccination experiences. Anyone vaccinated? I'm so jealous. How did it come to be that you've had one shot? Or do you know someone who has been vaccinated? When were they vaccinated? Where were they vaccinated? Why were they vaccinated? Have they had one shot or two? Did you use the online booking system this morning for Ontario that opened at 8 o'clock? Did it work for you okay? How long is the wait? Has it worked for you yet? Did you book an appointment yet? How would you describe the experience? Did you use the phone line? How did that go? It's pretty easy stuff that we're asking here. If it's vaccine experiences. We have some email to this effect. My email address is therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. Barb writes, good morning, Rob. I know two friends, 80 plus. They called the hotline. Got an appointment, had the shots yesterday. According to them, very professional and efficient. They've also been given an appointment for the next follow-up shot in 21 days. Wow, 21 days. Jenny writes from Barrhaven, my son qualifies as he received chronic home care. I was listening to you at 9 a.m., so decided to check out the Ontario website. When I tried to book him through an appointment through the fancy new provincial website, it redirects us to Ottawa Public Health. We can't book yet with Ottawa Public Health as we aren't in a high-risk neighborhood. Brent writes from Canada, I went on to look for my mother-in-law. Now, does that say love? Yeah, I would say that says love. Tried to log on to the vaccine site just a few minutes before 8. Nothing. Tried a few minutes after 8. Tried 10 times. Nothing. 8:03. Oh, so he's like pressing reload, starting at 7:53 this morning. Able to log in, enter basic info. It then takes you to a new page showing your wait time to book. At that time, there were 17,309 people ahead of me. Wait time, 57 minutes. Website updated every 2 minutes. Once on the sign-in page, it took about 1 minute to book first appointment. It automatically gives you a second reservation appointment 4 months later. Overall, I was impressed. Pretty slick process, writes Brent in Canada. Okay, so there we go. There's a few experiences. Heather, Ottawa. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning.
Hi, Heather.
Hi. So
have you been vaccinated?
I have, and I just want to let you know I'm 60 years old.
Okay. You're 60, and you got a shot already.
Well, that's because I went online to the Shoppers Drug Mart in Kingston.
Right.
And I actually called them Thursday night, and they said they're booking for Saturday, and I said, book me, Dano. I did 12:15 because and the rules on the Shoppers Drug Mart website and on the Kingston Public Health website are as long as you live, work, or study in Ontario and you're 60 or 64, then you qualify, because this is kind of like a I don't know if it's a pilot project or whatever it is.
Yeah, it is a pilot project right now.
Yeah, so I called Shoppers.
Yep.
I got an appointment for 12:30. My husband and I drove to Kingston. I got there at 12:10.
Right.
And I went in at 12:20. There was 2 people ahead of me, and they were actually from Ottawa as well. And I checked in. I had all the paperwork that I downloaded.
The people in front of the people who were there with you were from Ottawa too.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
And actually, when we booked, we said we were coming from Ottawa, and they said that's fine.
Oh, really? Okay.
As long as you're between 60 and 64.
Right.
Basically, this vaccine that they have expires in March, the end of March.
Right.
So it's use it or lose it. And each of the drugstores have approximately 500 units. And there's a huge list on the Kingston Public Health page with the list of about I'd say 30 drugstores, Costco, Loblaws, all those drugstores that have the vaccine.
So let me ask you a few more questions. What vaccine did you get? Do you know?
It starts with an A, the Indian one, sorry.
AstraZeneca, probably. AstraZeneca, right? Yeah, okay.
So they have, these expire, so they said, okay, use it or lose it.
Right. So is also 2 doses. Did you get an appointment for a second dose?
Well, what I did get was I got a email saying that I will be contacted for my second
for your second dose. Yeah. You're contacted by who? Shoppers Drug Mart or?
Oh, darn it.
Oh no, it's not important. Not important. Never mind.
That's a good question.
Okay.
I don't know, but I can.
But you're 60. You're not in compromised health or anything, but you're 60 and you took advantage of this pilot program. You made the inquiry, right?
But I am a caregiver for a cancer patient.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know that.
But that's the reason why I went.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's the okay. That
the people in front of me and other folks were not.
Okay. Right.
They only had to be, the criteria was between 60 and 64.
Right. Okay.
Because they had all this vaccine. And they did say on the website
But you didn't have to be from Kingston or the surrounding area.
Ontario.
Just Ontario. Okay. All right. I'm glad you got your shot. You're halfway there.
I am.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. There you go. Okay. Very interesting. The various circumstances of people getting shots here. That's hers. You know what? We'll stop here. Wayne, you hang on because he tried to use the online portal. Didn't go very well, apparently. Somebody in Kempville had a good experience. That's good to hear. Jan will get her experience on that we're doing vaccine experiences. Okay, there's somebody who went to Shoppers Drug Mart, got a shot. Somebody went into P and Sportsplex, got a shot. Somebody booked an appointment online, has an appointment to get a shot. All of these are positive developments, ladies and gentlemen. I want to hear more of this stuff. 750-1310. It's halftime. Talk Back Hour. Rob Snow Show on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1310 AM.
It's Monday, March 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, minus 13 degrees, but feeling in about minus 20. Here's what's making news this hour. As the provincial booking system for COVID-19 vaccinations takes calls and web applications for those over the age of 80, new numbers from the province just released show 1,268 new cases of COVID-19. Now, 57 of them are in Ottawa, 19 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 13 in Eastern Ontario. There are no new cases being reported today in Renfrew. These new numbers come from about 34,000 test results. There are also 9 more deaths reported in Ontario. A poll by the Canadian Mental Health Association is suggesting just 35% of people in Ontario consider their mental health to be very good or excellent as this pandemic wears on. It is down from 52% last May, a lot of people feeling increasingly lonely and isolated. 47% say they just wish they had someone to talk to. Rogers Communication, parent of this radio station, is buying Shaw Communications. That deal is worth $26 billion. The companies say this will create more jobs and investment, especially in Western Canada. The companies say Rogers will invest $2.5 billion in 5G networks over the next 5 years across Western Canada, and also set up $1 billion fund to bring high-speed internet to rural, remote, and Indigenous communities across the West. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Have you been vaccinated? Do you know someone who's been vaccinated? What was it like if it happened for you? Let's go to Wayne. Good morning, Wayne.
Yeah, hi, Rob.
Hi, Wayne.
I just wanted to tell you that my wife and I really love your show.
Well, I appreciate that, Wayne. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah,
so, have you been vaccinated?
No. My wife and I are both over 80, and I just tried this morning to use the online provincial system.
Yeah.
I waited 37 minutes for everybody else that was ahead of me before my turn came.
Yeah.
So we went through the procedure, and all we got was a notification that the form has been tampered with.
Oh.
So we tried again, form has been tampered with. So we tried about 3 or 4 more times, and we kept getting the same message back.
Okay.
So I don't know what's going on. It's not working for us.
Not working for you. Okay, maybe you should try the telephone line instead then, perhaps.
Well, that line is completely busy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should try it. It's just busy.
Oh, really? Okay. Like, you don't get a busy signal, though, do you, when you call the line? Do you?
Yes. Oh, yeah, it's a busy signal.
Oh, you get a busy signal.
A typical...
Okay. So not much luck for you, Wayne.
No, we'll try again,
Have to try again
later on.
Yeah. Well, Doug Ford said it was going to work like a charm. They tested it and everything.
We can only hope.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Wayne. Boy, so no luck at all with any doses yet for either you or your wife. She roughly the same age as you?
Yeah,
or?
she's 80, and she's a little bit compromised.
She is.
Cancer.
Okay. Yes.
So we want to make sure she gets her dose pretty quickly.
Yeah, okay. Well, good luck, Wayne.
Thanks, Rob.
And thanks for calling in. Hasn't worked for Wayne.
Keep up that good show.
We'll try our best, Wayne. Thank you. There's no shortage of material to work with, that's for sure. Who is it? Curtis? Curtis. Yes, Curtis. Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to share a good story, Rob, about the Kemptville vaccine center. I got my dose. I'm a healthcare worker a week ago Friday. Very well, in and out, no time at all. My grandma went on Monday. She's over 90. Same thing, in and out. My mother got to go with her, snapped a photo a little up, and they were back out the door. And both of us got our dates for our second dose.
Excellent. How long would you say the whole process took in Kemptville?
The longest was the 15-minute wait after your shot.
Oh, really?
To make sure you were okay.
Okay. And where did they do it in Kemptville?
Right at the municipal building.
At the municipal building. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Do you know what vaccine you got?
I got the Pfizer. I can't speak for my grandmother.
Right.
Now, I must have been a little ahead because I got my date for the second dose April 6th. Hers is not till July 6th.
Until July 6th. Wow. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, isn't that something? Okay.
Yeah.
So your grandmother is what, over what age? 90 or
I think
80?
she's 92, 91, 92.
Oh, 92. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, no problems. Yeah. No problems.
No problems at all.
Very efficient operation.
Yeah, everybody was great.
That's great. Okay. Glad to hear it, Curtis. Thank you.
All right. Take
There you
care.
go. Yeah. Maybe take the ride to Kempville, some people. Jan, good morning. Or is it Yan?
Good morning. It's Jan.
Jan. Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
I just want to say, first of all, Rob, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, thank you for calling,
and,
sir. Yeah.
And my problem is I'm 74, almost 75.
Yeah.
I have a type 2 diabetes, take 3 shots a day. I have a mechanical heart valve, and I'm in that area where I'm not 60 to 64 where I can get AstraZeneca, which is the preferred dose from my personal doctor for me to get.
Right.
But Ontario has not approved it over 64.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm calling for all the other people in that same group. Unfortunately, we're sort of like in between. We're not over 80. We're not in the 60-64 group, but we have health issues, and unfortunately, we're stuck.
So you can't get any Moderna vaccine. You can't get any Pfizer because it sounds like you would be you're the kind of perfect candidate, the poster child, if you will, for somebody who's supposed to get it. You're not even supposed to go to the clinic and get it. You're supposed to go to your doctor is supposed to give it to you, right?
Well, that may be down the road, but it's just the fact that I think the most irritating part of this whole thing, Rob, is that the 60 to 64-year-olds can get it. I can't get it because I just don't qualify because I'm too old. I have health issues which are pretty severe. They're type 2 diabetes. I take 3 shots a day, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
And yet, I have made many calls to Lisa McLeod's office and Jeremy Roberts, and they try to do what they can, but what can you do? It is what it is.
Right.
And you can't seem to get fast tracked either. So
yeah.
And I would love
and
to
you're
get it.
74, you said.
74, we said.
Right, and so they're going in 5-year increments. So you may actually have to wait 2 more increments, right?
Yeah.
Like they're doing the 80s.
We're looking at May 1st.
May 1st, yeah. Like
April 15th, May 1st, somewhere in that range.
Right. Wow. Hopefully you can get in before then. Maybe they'll get some supply. Do you have a family doctor or?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, well, hopefully, maybe that may be your best bet. Is that your family doctor gets some supply?
Yeah, I've been dealing mostly with my specialist because he preferred AstraZeneca of all the.
Because I was under the impression, Jan, that people in your situation who are obviously they're compromised because of they have chronic underlying health conditions.
Exactly.
It shouldn't really be at a mass vaccination clinic, and that supply would be set aside at their doctor's office because it would be your doctor who would have your complete medical history and know what to do, right? So
well, that may be, although I have had no confirmation from either one of my 2 doctors. So
okay.
I guess I could call.
Well, maybe it may be worth inquiring along those lines because I was under the impression that may be a course of action there that they were exploring.
Well,
okay.
Maybe I should try that.
Yeah, I would suggest you do. Yeah. Thank you, Jan.
Good
luck, sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye. It's good to hear new voices. There's a lot of new callers. Phyllis writes, I took my husband to the Nepean Sports Specs Friday for a 1:10 appointment. We were in that group that had to stand outside for 40 minutes. Question for your listeners. The nurse that gave him the shot said, you will receive a call between 21 days and 4 months with your next appointment. Then we proceed to the exit desk where the woman said, in about 2 weeks, call the same number you used to book your shot and make an appointment for your next vaccine. She told me, we would love to know if anyone else got better info. Thanks, Phyllis. Okay, it's out there for public consumption. If anybody wants to jump on that one. Anne in Canada.
Oh, hi, Rob.
Hi, Anne.
How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm
Good.
glad people are getting vaccinated.
My husband got vaccinated on the 6th of March.
On the 6th of March, okay.
His appointment was for 3:55, and he got the shot at 4:08.
Well, that's not bad. That's not bad.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That was in Smith Falls.
In Smith Falls, okay.
And our doctor is in Perth, and the doctor phoned that Thursday prior to the appointment, and they made the appointment for him.
At the doctor's office, or?
No, they just phoned and...
or they phoned the clinic on your behalf, then?
They made the appointment, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So then it was about 45 minutes all told, and appointment for the second shot, April 3rd.
Oh, that's not too bad.
No, that's
just
pretty
a few
good.
weeks from now.
Yeah, so I'll probably be qualified probably in May. So
Okay. This was for your husband?
This was for my husband.
How old is your husband, if you don't mind?
He's 83.
83, okay. All right, okay.
I don't know when they're going to do 69. I guess I qualify for 70, so...
Oh, I see, okay. Yeah, that seems... They're more or less going by year, the year you were born, right?
So, but that was pretty good, and he got the Pfizer one.
Got the Pfizer one, okay.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he doesn't have to wait 4 months. He's not waiting for me. You're only waiting a few
they gave him an
weeks.
appointment for April 3rd.
Yeah, April 3rd. Yeah, that's good. 2.5 weeks from now. So good.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
All right. And the whole operation in and out in less than an hour.
Yeah, and that would be the Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. I don't know. There's too many of them in there. Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, I think, is the health unit.
Health unit. Yeah, okay. All right.
So pretty efficient.
That's good. What was it, like a community center kind of setup?
It was at the arena in Smith Falls. I think you had a choice of 3 different venues.
Yeah.
And he picked Smith Falls, and it was at the ice hockey arena.
At the ice hockey arena.
And
okay.
no lineups, lots of signage.
Good.
In
All
and
right. That's some good news, Ann. Thank you.
Okay.
Glad he's well. Yep.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Everything's good. Up next is Michael in Greeley. Michael.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Good. I just wanted to follow up a lady that had her shot in Kingston.
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I was in and out in less than an hour. And that includes the 15-minute wait time. It was slick. We got on the phone on Wednesday night.
Right.
And I think Shoppers uses an aggregate system where it's a answering service or health management type of company, and you can see you're 8th in line, you're 7th in line, and it counts you down.
Okay.
Got a live guy, probably less than 10 minutes.
On the phone, you mean?
On the phone.
Okay.
Said somebody will be in contact with you in the next day or so to book your appointment. Next afternoon, that's Thursday afternoon, I'm sitting in my office. My cell rings. Shoppers, Kingston, can you be here at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning? I said yes.
Wow.
And I was out by 12. And
by 12, okay.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a lineup, but instead of sitting in front...
How many people would you say were in the line? Rough guess.
12.
12 people, okay.
Yeah, 12 people, all in their 60 to 65, because of the whole thing that they don't recommend the AstraZeneca post 65. I'm 62, and
plus they have all this vaccine that they want to use before the end of the month, I guess. Right.
Yeah,
So,
right. So and then they said you'll get a text message for your next appointment for your second shot, and they said they're 8 to 12 weeks.
Okay. 8 to 12 weeks. Okay, which is not 4 months. So
no,
a little less than that. 3 months at the most, I guess. Yeah.
With everything, I'm feeling for some of these. I'm not the youngest guy in the world or in the room, but
right.
for these older folks that sure could use it.
Yeah. But I mean, wouldn't it be nice if you're from Greeley and you took a flyer on going to Kingston, right?
Yeah, well, as she said, it's open to Ontario. It's just that's just where you go.
Sure. So won't it be nice when they can, this actually hits critical mass and you can go to a pharmacy in Greeley.
Yeah, well,
right, or whatever.
Well, this is the thing, and I was listening to the story of that fellow with his wife in the 90s. What they make those people go through in the PN Sportsplex, I just thought, give it to the private sector. They seem to make it work, and they give you the questionnaire, but it takes you 5 minutes to fill out the questionnaire. That's it.
Right.
And I also hear PharmaSave in Kingston is also booking for appointments as well.
Okay. All right. Glad to hear it went well.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
All right.
Listen all the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, be right back. Final quarter. Vaccine experiences this morning. Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show on City News.
part of the reason I got back into this is because I am creative, and I also wanted to kind of have a fun flair, 50s vibe. All of the boxes are kind of fun names, the colors are fun, the logo is fun, and it's not just the package that I want to bring joy to people's lives, it's also the feeling that they get when they receive it, to know that there's someone that thinks of them and they're missing them, and showing that they care when they can't be there. The smallest of the subscription boxes is the red box, the classical box. So you would get 5 to 7 items from the variety of categories. Those do change quarterly. However, with items that are more popular, we'll bring them back as people ask for them, or you could get them as an add-on option. And then those items will be included in the Jazzy box, the same items from the first, although they'll be in a larger size, more quantity, as well as a couple extra items. And then in the largest box, the Doo-Wop Deluxe, which is our most popular, that is a comprehensive offering of all of the other 2 boxes, plus additional. So for example, if you were to get a certain item in the smallest of the boxes, that item would still be offered in the large, but in a bigger size. So you're getting everything bigger, plus an extra few items. The first thing is I look for Canadian suppliers and manufacturers. That is something I'm very proud of. I make sure that the products are safe, that they fit into the packages that we offer, obviously. They have to be the proper size and weight. I have approximately 300 items that we have so far that we can order that basically help make people's lives easier. There's snacks, there's care items, there's entertainment, a little bit of everything. And basically I try it and test it, and if it's duly approved, then I include it in our packages. So some of the categories that we have is we offer treats, which is, of course, everyone likes treats, no matter how old you are. So we have things like nuts, chocolates, different types of snacks, maybe a handmade piece of jewelry. We also include pieces of jewelry as well, occasionally. We also have our pamper items. So your pamper items would include things like your bath soaks, your specialty lotions, things like that. 2 other categories we offer are leisure. Leisure would include things such as puzzles, adult coloring books, paint by numbers, crosswords, word find, Sudoku, if that's how you say it. And we also have items for self-care and health. So masks, sanitizers, sanitizing wipes, they're all natural, non-drying, made with natural ingredients. So they're very good for everyone, especially in this time that we're dealing with.
Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
All right, I'm looking at some of our callers here. David writes down a little note to accompany each caller. One says, phone bad, portal good, portal good. And this may be the new error message of the COVID era, tampered form, which apparently is the error message Helen keeps getting. Good morning, Helen, in Westboro.
Good morning.
What's happening?
What's
happening?
Well, I tried this morning 3 times, and it came back with the message, form has been tampered with.
Form has been tampered with. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I'm just
I have no idea what that would even mean, but...
Well, I'm wondering if I corrected something that I put in, before I clicked it.
I see. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know, but I've heard of other people getting that.
Yeah.
But I find it very strange because nobody has tampered with my form for 20 years.
Oh, you're so bad. That's bad. But I like it nonetheless. Okay. So when you logged on this morning, though, was it like right at 8 o'clock? Or?
No, I did it after 9.
After 9,
and the
okay.
wait was about 20 minutes. It wasn't bad.
Okay. Did you eventually get something sorted out with them?
No,
you didn't.
I gave up.
Okay.
I'm going to try again later.
Oh, you're going to try again later.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And the other thing I discovered.
Yes.
Who knew? My OHIP card has expired.
Oh, your OHIP card is expired.
Yeah,
well,
but
okay.
it's still accepted even if your card is expired. But it expired at, in 2020 on my birthday.
Right. Okay.
And I hadn't used it since then.
Yeah.
But
maybe a wake-up call for a lot of people.
Well, it is. That's what I thought. Holy tornado.
Yeah, you're walking around with an expired OHIP card.
Yeah. So I'll have to get that done too.
Okay. Thank you, Helen.
Okay,
Thank
my
you.
forms need to be put in order.
Yes. Get those forms in order. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Tampered form. That's the second such caller who is reporting tampered form. Your forms have been tampered with. We're at Vaccine Experiences. Jerry. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I went online around 2 minutes past 8, and everything went very efficient.
Good.
No problem at all. They gave me an appointment for Wednesday. You had a bunch of options for appointment, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, etc.
Yep.
No problem at all. The only problem I have is it's 16 weeks between the first and the second shot.
So you're waiting the full 4 months.
4 months. I'm listening to your program. I noticed that people outside of Ottawa are getting it within a shorter period of time.
Yeah, so, well, in some cases, 2.5 weeks, but 21 days or so, right? Yeah, the 21 days would be the shortest time, I guess.
Yeah, now the other thing is this lady was just speaking to you about canceled OHIP card.
Yeah.
I turned 80 last month, in December, and I was told when I was waiting for my license to come through, this license renewal, I was informed that because of COVID, everything's automatically renewed. So I'm driving with an expired driver's license, and my plates are also expired.
Right. But, I don't think it's that everything is automatically renewed.
It's not renewed. It's just in advance.
Yeah, it's like they're not going to fine you if you're, say you're out driving and your plate is expired. They're not going to fine you, right?
Exactly.
So yeah. It's kind of enforcement is suspended right now, as I understand.
The only thing one has to worry about if one drives another province or even them going down to the States, I guess is not possible right now. What were is it the same thing down there or
right.
or in
Yeah.
Quebec? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, but you had no problems, Jerry.
No problem. The only problem I don't like is the 16 weeks because the manufacturers are recommending 28 days and things like that, so you're way, way over.
So where are you going to get the vaccine?
I'm going to have to go the nightmares I heard of the Sportsplex.
Oh, the Sportsplex. Okay, I'm sure it'll be okay.
I just hope it's not as bad as it was last week.
Yeah, okay. Good luck, Jerry.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you. There you go. 20 minutes. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right. 750-1310. Still, if we're just, if you're booked online, if you tried the phone line, if you, like a couple of callers this morning, you went to Kingston and got shot at Shoppers Drug Mart. What was that like? Pilot program. Anne in Ottawa. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning.
Morning, Anne. You used the phone line. You called the phone line. Is that right?
I actually tried to book an appointment for my mom, who's elderly, that lives in Cornwall, through the Eastern Ontario Health Unit.
Oh, okay.
And I also got the same error message as many of your other callers. Form has been tampered with once I reached the actual website. So it starts out, you're on the website chewit.net.
Okay.
And I waited the first time like almost an hour, and I tried 4 times, and I still didn't get anywhere. I still ended up with that same error message. So then we used my husband's phone to try and see if maybe he would be successful. He had the same error. It says form has been tampered with. I started at 8:45, and right to now, I still haven't had any success. I always get the same error. Form has been tampered with. I did not make any corrections. I did not change anything on the dashes automatically get, put in, whatever.
Yep.
I don't know. There is a problem with the website for the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. I don't know what the problem is, but it's definitely a problem.
Well, it must be a problem. I mean, I've had 3 callers. You're the 3rd caller now in less than an hour who's had this issue. So
yeah, it might have been fine earlier this morning for the people that got on like right after 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Some were successful. They reported that it was a good experience. My experience was not good.
Not good.
And my mom, she's hard of hearing. She can't use the 1-800 number. She gets all flustered of press this, press that. and I was going to do this for her online, and obviously it's not working this way either. So.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck.
All right.
All right.
We'll try again.
Stick with it. Yep. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Where are we? This one here. Rosemary in Canada.
Oh, hi, Rob.
Hi, Rosemary.
Hi. First of all, I'm a first-time caller.
Well, I appreciate you picking up the phone and giving us a call. How did it go? You did the online booking system?
Yes, I did, and it worked like a charm. No glitches whatsoever.
Good.
I went on at 8 o'clock, and it indicated that the waiting time was approximately 1 hour, but the page kept getting refreshed, indicating, what the wait time was going to be. Anyway, it took less than an hour, and I booked it for my husband. First appointment next Friday, and the second appointment, which unfortunately is 16 weeks, 4 months out in July 16. But the great thing is that we live in Bridlewood in Kanata, and he just has to go to the Eva James Community Center, which is 5 minutes away from us, so we can walk over to it.
Excellent.
But it was great.
Yeah, good. I'm glad it went well for you.
Okay,
Great
thanks,
to
Rob.
hear. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, some people, it worked like a charm, and others it didn't. Gary in Ottawa. Gary.
Yes, good morning, Rob.
Hi, Gary.
Interesting situation. Friday, my wife, who is a retired registered nurse who has kept up her certification, gets an email from the Ontario College of Nurses asking her when she would like to get her shot.
Okay.
So she responded, which was great. I'm parked outside the Civic Hospital right now.
Okay.
Their answer was, how about Monday morning at 10:55?
Oh, okay.
And I've been parked here. It's a cool setup because they're protecting everybody if they have to stand out in line.
Right.
They've got all these tents set up just to cover you from the elements. And since the 10 minutes I've been here, I've watched over a dozen people walk that way with their paperwork in hand.
Well, that's good. So you just dropped your wife off to go get her shot literally like 10 minutes ago.
That's right, and I expect her back in about 25. And
Excellent.
the thing, too, Rob, is she's still working part-time, taking care of older seniors.
Right.
'Cause we're both 74.
Yeah. Well, God bless you both, and thank her for all the work that she's doing.
Well, I'm waiting on my turn because I'm an essential worker. I work in the food industry.
I see. Okay.
Night.
All right.
And,
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You work in the grocery store, right? You've called me before, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary.
Okay,
Good to know.
my
Thanks.
pleasure.
Yeah. We'll take one more, and that'll be it, David. Okay. One more. Andrew will be patient over there. Bill.
Hello.
Hey, Bill. Did you book an appointment online for a vaccine this morning?
I did.
How did it go?
Online went very well. I was phoning in at the same time. So when I got on about 8:02, they sent you to a website and they said it will be 17 minutes or something. And while I was waiting, I was dialing. And the dialing in, they told me I'm turning 80 in a couple of months, that I wasn't eligible. I said, well, that's wrong. Let me talk to somebody who knows what. Well, basically, they couldn't get into their website. They told me the website was down for them.
Oh, they couldn't get into the website. Okay.
And in the meantime, I booked myself and my wife, and about 8:30 I was finished.
Well, that's good.
I have an appointment next Tuesday, and the second one is July 13th.
July 13th, middle of July, so 4 months apart. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Bill. Glad it worked for you. Yeah.
Okay.
So, for the most part, I think it worked well for most people, but there were certainly some exceptions. I would say about a quarter of the calls today experienced some kind of trouble, either online or on the phone. But thank you all for your calls. Very interesting hour of programming there. My friend Geoffrey Johnston will join me next here on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, March 15th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, minus 13 degrees, feeling around minus 20 in the wind, though. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Latest numbers from the province showing 1,268 new cases of COVID-19 today. 57 of those cases are in Ottawa, 19 are in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 13 in Eastern Ontario's health unit. There are no new cases today in Renfrew. These numbers come from about 34,000 test results. There are also 9 more deaths being reported in Ontario. Now, as rates of COVID-19 variants continue to rise, an epidemiologist at the University of Toronto predicting we could be in for a rough April in the fight against this virus, but also remaining optimistic in the progress being made as the weather starts to warm up. We get the latest from City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Dr. Colin Furness says the classic COVID curve is coming down while variants of concern appear to be rising. He tells the Rob Snow Show we've hit the third wave, but it hasn't gotten to a point where it's out of control yet.
We obviously haven't bent yet, but it's happening. We're in that wave now, and I think the sooner that we recognize that, not in a panicky way, but just in a cold, hard way to say, well, what now do we need to do to control this? I think that's the right attitude to have.
Dr. Furness adds, in order to get spread of the variant under control, schools might have to be closed again. While he predicts a rough April, the doctor ensures this wave will be done once the vaccinations continue to roll out and the weather gets warmer. He also anticipates once things reopen in the summer, they won't close again. Alex Gouge, City News.
Now, as for specific numbers, there are just over 3,300 COVID variant cases in our country. That's an increase of 316 in the past 4 days. Numbers released by Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Theresa Tam. Now, more than 2/3 of the cases are in Ontario and Alberta. BC and Quebec also reporting cases. The B.1.1.7 variant, which was first found in the UK, does remain the dominant variant, spreading throughout Canada. City News time, 11:04. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Last week of winter, and we'll start with cold wind chills. Our high just -4 today, but lots of sunshine. Tonight, mainly clear down to -14, and then turning milder tomorrow, mainly cloudy up to +3. For today, the high -4.
And right now in both Smiths Falls and Ottawa, -13, feeling around -20, though, in the wind. Preparations are being made for the summer patio season in Smiths Falls. Town Council will vote on a resolution that would see flexibility on patio rules extend for at least one more season. Those include administrative fees being waived. Council will talk about this evening, getting underway at 5:30. A mega merger Monday in the Canadian communications sector as Rogers, the parent company of this radio station, has a proposal to purchase Shaw.
Rogers Communications has signed a deal valued at $26 billion, including debt, to buy Shaw Communications. The companies say Rogers will invest $2.5 billion in 5G networks over the next 5 years across Western Canada as part of this deal. Rogers also says it will create a new $1 billion fund dedicated to connecting rural, remote, and Indigenous communities across Western Canada to high-speed internet service. Don Kelly, The Canadian Press, Toronto.
And I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Geoffrey Johnston is back from the Kingston Whig-Standard. He writes about international affairs in his capacity as a columnist for the Kingston Whig-Standard. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
I want to talk about intellectual property in the pharmaceutical industry. This is one of the topics of your latest column. Normally, when a drug company develops a new pharmaceutical product, like a vaccine, for example, there's a certain amount of intellectual property protection that can last from anywhere from 180 days to as long as 7 years. So with vaccine bottlenecks, vaccine nationalism, there are questions about the waiving of international property rights, the role of generic drug makers, and something that you're writing about, Geoffrey, which I really wasn't aware of, trade-related aspects of international property rights, or what's known as TRIPS. What is TRIPS?
Yeah, so the trip, there's this South Africa and India put forward a proposal last fall, and they basically want to waive the patent protection for COVID vaccines, and they're appealing to do this under this so-called TRIPS mechanism. And you also have the World Health Organization and a number of humanitarian non-governmental organizations asking for these intellectual property rights to be temporarily suspended so that generic drug makers can also produce COVID vaccines. I interviewed Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, and we talked about this issue. And basically, everybody on the planet is going to need a COVID vaccine, but Médecins Sans Frontières and Oxfam point out that the supply nowhere meets the demand, because it's the drug maker that determines how much is going to get made, what the price point of the vaccine is going to be, and who they're going to sell it to. And the problem is the way the pharmaceutical sector has been set up is that the big pharma companies that are making these vaccines are prioritizing wealthy countries such as Canada, the United States, European Union countries, for vaccines, and most of the developing world has not received vaccines. And even with the COVAX facility, which is an international coalition to ensure that the developing countries get at least some vaccine, that will only meet about 20% of the needs of the developing world. And Oxfam tells me that it could be 2024 before everybody in the developing world is vaccinated. So the solution would be to temporarily waive the patent protection rights, and that would allow governments to issue compulsory licensing orders that would make the pharma companies share their technology and their intellectual property with generic drug makers, and that would ramp up supply to ensure that everybody's vaccinated either this year or next year. So that's what it's all about.
Right. But would it be without compensation? Let's take Pfizer, for example. Pfizer and its partner BioNTech, I'm pretty sure they received money from Project Warp Speed, so they would have received government money in the United States, right, to help develop these vaccines.
Actually,
right?
Pfizer didn't take any government money.
Oh, Pfizer did? Well, good for you on knowing that. Okay. So then it invested its own money, right? And this is cutting-edge technology, this mRNA technology. You could make the case, and this will be the case that could be made, I think, is, look, it's our technology, it's our brain power, and it's our exclusivity, right? So we deserve to have we deserve to have protection of our intellectual property. That's our technology.
Yeah, and Pfizer is in a very strong position to make that case because they say they did not take any of the government money. The other vaccine makers did, so you could say it's a public good. There is a royalty that would be paid, even if this TRIPS waiver was put in place. Yes, there would be a royalty, so they would get some money. It wouldn't be nearly as lucrative, and this is a big issue, and this is why the developing world is supporting the waiving of these rights, but other countries such as Great Britain, the United States, Switzerland are standing in the way. They outright oppose it. Canada's being a little trickier. Canada's not saying, I contacted the Canadian government, Global Affairs. They're not saying they oppose the proposal, but they're not supporting it either. What they want, the Canadian government is asking for, is additional consultation and discussion on all of this, but that's really just a delaying tactic. They don't want to be the bad guys and say we're against it. The question is, if it's not going to be the TRIPS waiver, what is the answer? What will the solution be? How will they ramp up production? Because 2024 is too late. That's way too late. We're going to have variants of concern arise in that time, and it could defeat the existing vaccine. So there has to be a solution. So if it's not going to be this, what's it going to be? And they don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Today, let's go on to something else here that you have followed, and you've written many, many columns about 10 years of conflict in Syria. And today is the 10th anniversary of the start of the uprising that eventually became the Civil War. And that was part of the Arab Spring, I guess. What, right, Geoffrey? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and here we are, all of these years, 10 years later. Bashar al-Assad is still there, still propped up by Russia and Iran, and you have millions of people displaced, countless dead, an entire population pushed ever deeper into poverty. And the majority, according to a report on the Associated Press this morning, quote, a majority of households can hardly scrape together enough to secure their next meal. 10 years of civil war in Syria. Your thoughts today on that date?
This is a human tragedy. It is the worst refugee and displacement crisis since the Second World War. You have 5.6 million Syrians living in the region as refugees. You have 6.3 million Syrians internally displaced. The refugees who are living in other countries are living in poverty. In Lebanon, as you and I have talked about before, their economy has basically collapsed. And so you have 90% of the refugees in Lebanon living in below the extreme poverty line. You have children who aren't going to school. You have basic nutrition needs not being met. In Syria itself, many of the hospitals have been deliberately destroyed by the regime. Canada and other countries are calling for the Assad regime to be referred to the International Criminal Court for war crimes, because deliberately targeting hospitals and schools and civilian areas are clear-cut war crimes. This is horrible. And when we go back to 2011, that's when the world really could have made a difference. If the world had intervened then and invoked the Canadian-inspired responsibility to protect doctrine at the United Nations, perhaps this could have all been mitigated. Maybe there wouldn't be over 500,000 people dead. And by the way, they don't even count anymore how many people have been killed there. The conservative estimate is 500,000, but it's probably a lot higher than that.
Right.
And the world has just stepped back, and people no longer care. Last year, the humanitarian needs in Syria went basically unmet. The NGOs that are raising money only got half the amount they needed to serve the Syrian refugees and the internally displaced people. So it's terrible, and it goes on, and there's no end in sight.
Yeah. In reading the Associated Press account this morning, it notes that the crisis in Lebanon, you had the economic crisis, then you had that terrible explosion. You also have a country with a long history of political corruption. But certainly the economic collapse in Lebanon really took as well a toll on Syria and made a bad situation even worse, right? So
yeah. Absolutely. So a lot of the Syrians fled to Lebanon,
right,
and they were able to find informal work in that country. But now, because of the economic crisis, people who are barely scraping by now aren't getting by at all. And so I was reading a UN report today, actually, and a staggering number of Syrian refugees want to commit self-harm, to commit suicide, kill themselves, take their own lives, because it's so desperate. And the tragic thing is the world doesn't seem to care. The world's just basically moved on, and this continues every day. It's a brutal reality, and the worst refugee crisis since the Second World War continues.
Okay. I thank you for your time today and for following these very important stories for us. Geoffrey Johnston writes about international affairs for the Kingston Whig-Standard. David Sali writes about local business news for the Ottawa Business Journal. And he is coming right up here on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring, and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box, as well as the Market Mobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years, and Market Mobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
With Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every Monday, we take a look at some local business news with David Sali from the Ottawa Business Journal, and David is back with us this morning. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Rob.
Well, it's certainly been one of the busiest developers on either side of the Ottawa River, Brodie, and it has just announced another big deal. This is involving a major hotel in downtown Gatineau. Tell us about this latest real estate transaction.
Well, Rob, yeah, it is Brodie, as you said, who had just recently made headlines for announcing it was buying the former Greyhound bus terminal in Ottawa and plans to turn that into a major mixed-use development. Well, now Brodie is saying it has reached an agreement to purchase the 4 Points by Sheraton Hotel and Conference Center in Gatineau. That's on Laurier Avenue, so that's just a bit stone's throw to the west of the Canadian Museum of History. I'm sure anybody who's familiar with downtown Gatineau knows it very well. Got lots of conference space. It's right beside, it's almost a 2-acre site, and there's beside it there's a heritage building, the Notre Dame de Grace Presbytery, a former rectory for a church that burned down years ago, and that's now a conference center for the hotel. So Brodie has bought all of that, bought that property.
Okay.
And the parking lot, and the interesting thing, the parking lot, Rob, is zoned for a building of up to 30 stories. And there had been previous plans floated about 5 years ago to do something there, to build a high-rise, mixed-use high-rise there. And so I talked to Gilles Desjardins. He is the VP of Development for Brazil. I spoke to him last week. He says they're going to talk to residents and community groups, business groups, to find out what people would like to see on that land beside the hotel. They're going to keep the hotel under the Sheraton banner. That's the plan.
Okay.
And so the hotel will not. They're not planning to convert it to condos or apartments or anything like that. They think the tourism market's going to bounce back once the vaccine really gets rolled out, and so they're not concerned about that. But they are really interested in what to do with that vacant space beside the hotel. They really think there's some good development opportunities there, so they want to talk to the community and find out what people want to see there. And as far as the heritage building goes, well, they're going to look at different options for that. They've already been approached by museums, various community groups about potentially turning that building into maybe more of a sort of historical site, attracting tourists, that sort of thing there. So yeah, we'll see, and they are really interested, as they said with the bus terminal. They talked about the 15-minute neighborhood idea, right, where you can walk. Right. You're right close to downtown to transit. You can walk, so there can be shops, shops, residential space, office space. So they really feel they can do kind of that same thing right there in downtown Gatineau. So. This is early days for this project, and we'll see where it goes. Let's not forget that Brazil propose a few years ago a plan that generated a bit of controversy. They wanted to construct a 35-story, a 55-story tower right across the street from the Canadian Museum of History. That would have had condos, hotel rooms. And that ended up kind of getting, it got shot down just because people were concerned the buildings were just too tall, didn't really fit in with the neighborhood. Right. So Gatineau ended up designating that area Heritage District and put a 3-story cap on all development. So we'll see what happens with this property, but right now the zoning is there for a high-rise, and we'll just see where it goes.
Okay. Ottawa is really, as long as I've been doing business news in Ottawa, it's always had this exciting life sciences sector, and now we're learning just how interesting it is, and how it's been maybe not at the forefront, because we think of ourselves as, well, now kind of the Shopify town. We used to be the telecom town. Photonics, these kinds of things, but life sciences has always been there, and now you see how it's really positioned to take advantage of vaccines, therapies in this COVID era. And for example, you're reporting on VBI vaccines, which has now signed a partnership with the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. Tell us a little bit about this deal here.
Well, Rob, it's an interesting deal. It is so VBI vaccines is actually based in Massachusetts, but it really got its start here in Ottawa through a partnership with the National Research Council and researchers from the Ottawa Hospital. So it's been developing vaccines for over a decade. For things like hepatitis, and some other viruses. It's turned its attention now to COVID-19, to the coronavirus, and it's been working for almost the past year on a vaccine, which it's now starting to test. People, it's launched clinical trials, as of last week, including here in Ottawa at the Ottawa Hospital. And it recently just signed a partnership with the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation. It's a consortium of various government agencies, research agencies based in Europe that looks to try and develop cutting-edge vaccines. It's giving DBI $33 million US to help come up with new vaccines that hopefully combat the new, more transmissible variants of the coronavirus that are now really cropping up and starting to take hold and dominate in a lot of the world. So the B1351 strain, which is the one that was first seen in South Africa, that's the one they're really looking at right now. That's the one they're really targeting with their next round of research. As I say, they're rolling out. Now they're getting ready to do trials for the vaccine that they've spent the last almost year developing for the original coronavirus. They've gotten $56 million in federal government funding to help develop that. So they hope to have that one on the market if all goes well by next year. And in the meantime, they're really ramping up to try and get some vaccines that target these new variants going as well. So the big thing about their vaccine is it doesn't require that real ultra cold, that deep freeze refrigeration that some of the vaccines do. It can be stored and handled at normal refrigerated conditions, 4 to 8 degrees Celsius, which is huge, Rob. As you know, that makes it much less costly and much more logistically feasible to kind of transport and handle and get delivered to more quickly. So they're really hoping that they're a little bit behind the curve right now in terms of the big boys, the Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Pfizer's of the world, but they're hoping that they can have something on the market by next year and can help, can just help keep rolling out those vaccines and from a Canadian developed company too, which is even better.
Excellent. Thank you, David Sali. Always great to hear from you.
Thanks.
David Sali from the Ottawa Business Journal. Coming up next, Conservative Party Policy Convention is coming up. Big speech from Erin O'Toole with the CPC at 28% in the polls. The goals for this week's policy convention and the leader. We'll go over some ideas with Ian Brodie, former Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Stephen Harper. He's now a professor of political science at the University of Calgary. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, March 15th. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buck, and right now in Ottawa, sunny and chilly, minus 12 with a wind chill minus 21. In Smiths Falls, some sunshine, minus 12, wind chill minus 18. Here's what's making news this hour. Ontario health officials report 1,268 new cases of COVID-19 and 9 more deaths due to the virus. Public Health Ontario reporting 57 new cases in Ottawa. Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit reporting 36 new cases. Now, 3 of those are new in the past 24 hours. The health unit stepped back into yellow protect status under the province's COVID restrictions framework as of midnight. Elsewhere, no new cases for Renfrew County, but the health unit did confirm another death of a resident at Miramichi Lodge Nursing Home in Pembroke. Eastern Ontario Health Unit has 13 new cases, according to provincial data. COVID-19 vaccine booking systems are launching or expanding across the country this week. Ontario's COVID-19 vaccine booking system launched this morning for those aged 80 and up. Within minutes, there were about 8,000 people in the queue to get an appointment. Callers to the Rob Snow Show reported some issues with the online form and busy phone lines. Premier Doug Ford is asking people who are not yet eligible to stay clear of the system unless, of course, you're helping an elderly relative or neighbor book their shot. A survey from a group of 16 health charities finds the pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on patients, including 43% of those whose treatment has been canceled or postponed. Health Partners says chronically or seriously ill patients do get support from various groups, but it wants the federal and provincial governments to help provide some funding. I'm Sarah Buchan. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
It's a big week for the team in blue, the Conservative Party of Canada. Big week for the leader, Erin O'Toole. Policy convention this week starts Thursday. It's all online. It's a virtual policy convention. Doesn't that sound exciting, ladies and gentlemen? A conservative virtual policy convention. Erin O'Toole will make a big speech, maybe the most important of his political career. This is a party that needs some mojo, ladies and gentlemen. Last week we talked about how the Conservative Party's polling numbers are in the tank. Okay, worst polling numbers since the creation of this new United Conservative Party, what I call Harper's Party. 28% in the polls. 28% in the polls. So joining us this morning, Professor, Political Science, University of Calgary, and former Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Stephen Harper, Ian Brodie. Good morning, Professor.
Rob, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, thanks.
Well, what does the Conservative Party have to present this week? What are the goals, do you think, for the Conservative Party this week?
Well, this is every 2 years the party has a convention like this. I wouldn't be too worried about the news outside the convention hall or outside the convention Zoom app. This is for members to have their say about the future of the party, and I think the finances of the party are good. We'll see what the organizational state of the party is, getting ready for an election that could be a few weeks away. And then, as you said off the top, I think the big external news will be O'Toole's speech before the convention voting really gets underway.
Okay. So, if you're Erin O'Toole, what is the message that you want to deliver? Because this is really, this is the keynote address. This is what, in the end, will probably get most of the headlines. Now that it seems that the issue of social conservatism and abortion seems to have been somewhat quelled, although we'll see how the week unfolds. A lot of people are going to key into what the leader has to say and how what his vision is and how he articulates it. What are some of the key messages, do you think, he should be hitting?
Yeah, given that this convention comes, it could be a few months, maybe a few weeks away from an election campaign. The message will be, I hope, will be looking forward, because I think we want to hear. He's had, a few smaller speeches at Regional Chamber of Commerce over the course of the past couple of months, but he hasn't given kind of a big nationally focused speech, if you want, since he became leader back in August. But now we're in a stage where the news situation is starting to shift away from away from endless lockdowns to spread of vaccine and the possibility of some light at the end of the tunnel on the vaccine. So I think the question is, what are the big challenges looking forward here? How do we get people back to work? How do we get people's lives back in order? What do we have to do to make sure we don't have to go through this sort of lockdown again? And what message for national unity coming out of this, given that he's got probably 30% of the delegates of this convention coming from Western Canada. There are known issues in Alberta and Saskatchewan, parts of British Columbia, about the economy even before COVID hit.
Right. I listened to a recent podcast that you did with David Hurley, the longtime Liberal organizer in Ontario, and you told him that he was asking you about, well, where do you think the Conservatives could make up some ground on the Liberals, given where the Conservatives are and the Liberals with an incumbency advantage here? And one of the things that you pointed to was perhaps pocketbook issues or affordability issues, that there might be some hay to make there. Could you explain that a little bit, Professor?
Yeah, I think the Trudeau government's messaging coming out of the COVID lockdowns has been about build back better. They have plans for a greener economy, a fairer economy, for all sorts of social justice issues coming out of the lockdown. I think for the folks who are in the sort of the core of the Liberal Party's base, if you will, that makes sense. These are, upper-income professional groups and big city folks whose lives have been disrupted by the COVID lockdowns, but not really big setbacks from the COVID lockdowns. Right? These are people who are able to do their jobs at home on video conferences or however you want to do by kind of remote technology, and so for the core Liberal voters, kind of build back better. Yeah, sure, we were at home for a little bit, and we'd like to get back to work, but let's take a big chunk of money and try and overhaul the Canadian economy. There's another side, of course, to this for people whose lives have been really seriously set back by this. They've lost family members or loved ones. They haven't been able to get back to the work that they're used to doing. Maybe they own a small business, a store or a restaurant, and their business is really severely hurt. And for those folks, I don't think Mr. Trudeau's message is really focused on them. That's an opportunity for people who have really had their economic pocketbook set back by this year-long set of shutdowns. What's for them is to build back better or just build back. We want to get back to being able to see our friends, to open up our business, to get back to work. So I think about all those people who are working in restaurants or working in hospitality business and so forth. For them, the build back better part might be just missing the mark altogether.
Yeah. Let's just get back. We can talk about better later.
We can talk about better later, but if you've been on layoff, your CERB might have run out, or you were running down your savings to try to keep your business afloat. I think the build back better part is a business for some point in the future. Let's just get back to business.
Right. I made the case last week that if I was Aaron O'Toole in the Conservative Party, because certainly the Toronto Star ran a big story a couple of weeks ago, Aaron O'Toole pondering Conservative carbon tax, I wouldn't obsess for more than 10 minutes over an aggressive climate agenda or a carbon tax. I'd like to know how you view that issue right now. Climate emergency, all of this.
It's interesting, Rob. The sort of the public opinion on climate issues and environmental issues obviously goes up and down over time. And over the past year, I think we've seen that it's fallen out of the kind of the top 5 issues that people are really worried about, displaced by first health and then the future of the future of the economy. I mean, it's always going to be an issue there. People are going to be worried about this, but when the headlines are Greta Thunberg, the world is going to incinerate itself in 5 years if we don't eliminate hydrocarbons today. That kind of almost religious fervor for the issue is hard for conservatives to break through on, right? There's other people who are better placed for that. But when the issue breaks down into the kind of the 5th place, 6th place, 7th place of people's awareness, and they're starting to think about can we make progress on this over the next 20 years? Are we going to get the situation under control by 2050, 2060, some date in the future? Then that's a management problem, one amongst many. And I think there's that's the kind of environment where Conservatives would say, yes, we're going to take this issue seriously, but it's a 20-year fight, or it's a 20-year management problem, and we have some tools that can make progress with it. If it's urgent that we do this before, Greta Thunberg turns 18 or whatever, the world's going to incinerate itself, and people have that idea in their head, there's not much space for Conservatives in that public opinion.
How historically did Mr. Harper deal with the social conservative wing of the party, which is always there and also very active?
Very active, and probably more active since Mr. Trudeau, drew the line on social conservative issues and said, if you're interested in any of these issues of abortion and so forth, you have no place in the Liberal Party. Just, threw all those people out of the Liberal Party when he became leader, and over the course of the last 5 years made it, if you have any socially conservative views, you can't even run for a Liberal Party nomination. So he drew a line and closed off debate about those sorts of issues inside the Liberal Party. That has pushed some of this into the Conservative Party, so the issues become a little more complicated for Mr. O'Toole. Look, there's been a big debate leading up to this convention in community meetings across the country. People decided over the course of the past 4 or 5 months what issues they want to see debated at this online convention and not, and that's the list of convention resolutions. Mr. Harper was clear, I think, since he first ran for leader of the old Canadian Alliance, he wasn't going to reopen the abortion issue. But there were lots of other issues that he was quite open to having discussed and dealt with by the Conservative government on crime, on human trafficking, on family issues and marriage issues, and I think that's proved to be a wise approach. Everybody understood what was where you could make progress inside the Conservative Party and what issues we weren't going to make progress on anytime soon.
Right.
And I expect that Mr. O'Toole will have something similar to say about that this week.
I think if I was Aaron O'Toole and the federal Conservative Party, I would be thrilled if I could replicate what Doug Ford did in Ontario 2 years ago. Gosh, it's very similar actually to what Mr. Harper accomplished in 2011, where there was so much success in the suburban communities outside of downtown Toronto. What are some messages Doug Ford has or delivered that got him the result that it did in the last Ontario election that may be of use for Aaron O'Toole in an upcoming federal campaign?
So I think there's two pieces of that, Roz. Let me just put those two pieces out there. One is to go back to the climate issues we were talking about a moment ago. Doug Ford, I think, understood that a carbon tax on every gallon of gas is a very efficient way of scooping billions of dollars out of basically every household in the suburbs around Ottawa, Toronto, go down the 401, Montreal, different situation federally. I think, Ford understood that at least in Ontario, you're talking about maybe 30 or 40 ridings where the carbon tax is a very efficient way of making almost every household in those ridings pay the price for climate policies and letting other people a little bit lighter off the hook. So he wasn't scared of that issue, and I thought that played well to him. Let's also remember, though, he was running against a party that had been in office for quite some time, that had run up some pretty serious self-dealing and corruption problems. Certainly the idea that the Liberals at Queen's Park were better off sort of dealing with themselves than with the public interest. And I think that's an issue where the federal Conservatives have been a little bit light over the last 6 months since the summer committee hearings last summer about the and this is an issue which I think has to come back in the next couple of months for the federal Conservatives. The federal Liberals are still vulnerable on that issue of self-dealing, corruption, entitlement, patronage. And I hope that becomes an increasing focus of the federal party over the next couple of months. That's a lesson right out of Doug Ford's playbook.
Okay. Thank you so much for today. Great to have you on our show. Thanks
Happy
again.
to talk.
Yeah, bye-bye. Ian Brodie, Professor of Political Science, University of Calgary, and former Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Harper. We'll be right back. Rob Snow Show here on City News.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store. A popcorn machine was in there. He didn't want it. I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use exact words. But anyway, we started, and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, it was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. It sometimes people, you know, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News,
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
So the city staff has been given the go-ahead to take a look at a new approach to increasing the number of affordable housing units in Ottawa by leasing directly from private market landlords. And to talk a little bit more about this, John Dickie joins us. He's the chair of the Eastern Ontario Landlord Organization. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear from you again.
Yes, thank you for having me on the show.
It's been a while. I want to ask you, first of all, how you would describe the current rental market in the city of Ottawa.
Well, it's weaker than it has been for about 3 years.
Okay.
In other words, there was a big run-up over the last 3 years prior to the onset of the pandemic. But then with people not working downtown anymore, people not being able to socialize downtown, and the students not going on in-person classes, there was a considerable drop in rental demand, particularly in the areas of the city that served those that demand.
It was tight, a very tight market for a long time, though, wasn't it, John?
It was a very tight market, and it has gone to being what is the
the highest vacancy rate we've seen in Ottawa for, I think, 15 or 20 years. Before that, 3 years before that, 2 years ago, I know a man who has been operating in this business for more than 25 years, and he said 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, it was the tightest market he'd ever seen.
Yeah. There seems to be new supply coming on as well. Significant new rental housing is coming online. I mean, thousands and thousands of units, major developments, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And now they tend to be at the high end. They tend to be pricey. They've got the latest finishes. They've got the designs that young people and well-off people want these days. But by the same token, the new units loosen up the market because people move maybe from paying $2,000 a month to paying $2,500 a month. So then you've got a $2,000 unit. And then people move from a $1,500 unit into the $2,000 unit, and then you've got a $1,500 or $1,600 or $1,700 unit. So it's the more supply is what we need generally in order for rental housing, indeed all housing, to be more affordable.
Right. Yeah. I have thought, just looking at the significant investment that's been poured into new developments for rental housing. I haven't seen it in years. I think if you had looked at those developments 10 years ago, they wouldn't have been apartments. They would have been condos.
Well, they would have been condos, or they wouldn't have been built at all.
Right.
Because certainly, and this is the market working, because there's a lot of costs to build either condos or rental housing, and until 3-5 years ago, the rents that people could get on new units didn't justify all the costs, including the city's development charges, the HST, all kinds of costs, and new construction, new building standards. There's all kinds of things that make it more costly today to build housing than it cost 30, 40 years ago. I mean, even adjusted for inflation.
Okay.
And what the federal government actually, their officials, the finance officials, always, the rental housing industry has been saying for years that new supply was needed, and the government's needed to make it easier for us to deliver new supply. The federal finance officials kept saying, if the market calls for new supply will be built. So we don't have to make it any easier for you to build. But what I think they were forgetting was that 30, 40 years ago, we could build a unit, we could see a vacant site, conceive of building units, and have them on the rental market in 2.5 years. Now it takes 7.5 years. So, all those, the last half decade, the building that's coming on site now is coming on site because of what the demand was 5 years ago. We were on a treadmill and falling behind in terms of catching up with the current demand.
So we're making up for past pressures. Now, I want to get into this idea of a head lease program. The city is going to look at a head lease program, and it's instructed the staff to, you go look at it, bring us, some city council, some recommendations. But your fear is they're waiting too long, because the recommendations, the program design, it won't even be known until Q2 of next year, which is next summer. So you're thinking they're waiting too long, right?
Correct, because we in the industry think that once people are vaccinated, we'll go back to normal or pre-COVID norms. People will go back to wanting to live downtown. The students will go back to renting in the student areas. And so, yes, there have been a couple of thousand new rental units come on, but is that enough? If that's enough, great. If it isn't enough, and I don't think personally it will be enough, then we'll go back to a pretty tight market. And rents will rise again. I mean, that's what markets do. When things are in high demand, prices rise, and people have second thoughts about doing it, or they share with someone, or the young people stay at home. When the market when there's more supply, well, then prices will come down.
Right. So what would be preferable, in your opinion?
I think that
put this on the fast track? Yeah.
Much more quickly. They should roll out a program now. They don't want to rent units long before they can put tenants in them, but they have tenants, especially those homeless families, that they want to put in units. And so they could rent, the city, if they could get it done, could rent units now for maybe $1,800, $2,000, big units that would accommodate pretty big families, and then provide the supports. They've got some financial supports,
yes,
and any other supports they need, and get them into these units.
Yeah, the message being the demand would be there. You would find the landlords to be accommodating now. The same may not be the case a year from now, right? Yeah.
One, not as accommodating, and two, will want to higher rents because we can get higher rents.
Right.
I mean, what we do is we provide housing, and the market really determines the level of rent. And what we do is try to provide that housing using the least amount of inputs we can while still delivering the quality that tenants want. That's what we're good at. It's not our job to subsidize people. It's frankly not our job to provide social service or mental health supports. There are plenty of other agencies who have those jobs. But we're very good at what we do, which is to say provide rental housing.
Okay. Thank you, John Dickie. Great to hear from you.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining the issue to us, sir.
Thank you, Rob, for raising it. Bye-bye now.
From the Eastern Ontario